Part 117. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1179. When Yilin raised the knife and chopped off Elizabeth's head, the black water in the box changed again. In the black water, a black key with an ancient shape floats. It looks real, but it is translucent. The moment Yilin took away the key, he instantly gained control of the world. All the elements and principles that make up the world were under Yilin's control. Walk. In the blink of an eye, wrapped in a barrier, the three of them appeared on the sea. Even though Yilin adjusted the pressure in the barrier in advance, the instantaneous pressure change still caused Molly and Ruth to cover their ears in pain and squat on the ground, their heads buzzing, and they felt dizzy and dry. Vomiting, like early pregnancy reaction. Click. Yilin holds the key and twists the key-shaped core of the world. The door opens, and Yilin steps into the crack in the door. Entering the rift, there is a closed room inside. The walls of the room are transparent, and the outside world is full of blue sea water. The sunlight forms layers of gorgeous light in the sea water. The room was not empty. In the center of the room, there is a rudder. In the center of the rudder is a palm-sized disc with the shape of an anchor on it. A burst of phantom light passed by, and strands of light condensed into a girl wearing a black dress in front of the rudder. The girl's face Yilin saw during the disillusionment process of the bubble. It was Calypso in his youth. "Hello, Captain, I'm the navigator." The girl's cold voice sounded in the room. There were no ups and downs of emotions, no ups and downs, and the girl's voice was as calm as a machine. The moment Yilin captured the core of the world, he had become the captain of this world, taking control of it earlier than Nemesis. He holds no nonsense and puts his hand on the rudder of the world. In an instant, hundreds of illusory light curtains lit up in front of Yilin, and a huge data stream flowed at high speed in the light curtain. When Yilin read the information left by this world ship, green wings pointed at the sky. "Nemesis is coming." Hear the words. Yilin looked not surprised at all and nodded. "First, I took out the nano-bugs of the four emperors, and then Calypso's aura disappeared, and I killed Elizabeth with my backhand, which was equivalent to hitting it in the face. It is here the world's plans have been disrupted by me one by one, and it won't be right if I can sit still any longer. From the time they found the core of the world in the deep sea to Yilin killing Elizabeth, this series of things happened too quickly. Ruth and Molly didn't even react, they were so overwhelmed. Yilin had no time to explain why she suddenly killed Elizabeth. In fact, when Yilin took out the nano-worm from Elizabeth's brain, he discovered something. There are actually two nano-bugs in Elizabeth Lin's mind. One of the nano-worms was taken out by Yilin. But the second item replaced Elizabeth's cerebrospinal fluid in a liquid form, which was indivisible and separate. Looking deeper under the microscope, through the pollution of cerebrospinal fluid, Elizabeth Lin's brain cells were already covered with nano-worms. When Yilin learned about this, he knew that because of the special relationship between Elizabeth Lin and Calypso, Nemesis had even more special care for Elizabeth. Therefore, Yilin remained calm and waited for Elizabeth to be completely taken away from her, then suddenly jumped up and slapped Nemesis in the face. So much so that Green would call Yilin arrogant. Yilin and Green fell behind. Yilin left the drive room of the world, and when he reappeared, he was already on the Gaia fortress. There are no signs. A gap suddenly opened in the sky. A piece of humanoid machinery like a locust burst into the water world from the crack. Whether it's night or day, the scavengers of the world raised their heads in panic and looked to the sky. Around the torn sky curtain, distorted faces appeared densely. These faces are outlined by stars and night, like vast stars and ghosts in the sky. Different expressions can be vaguely discerned on their faces. Either grinning, or sarcastic, or playful, or nervous, or happy. They are gods. In this off-site gambling game, the gods who held down the chips. Green spread his hands regretfully. "It's a pity that your Woolulu didn't come. He could have intervened, because Nemesis's personality is so obvious. If it intervened, the higher UPS would only turn a blind eye. But there may also be another outcome. This war will evolve from a small war to a slightly larger war. Yulin understood what green meant. The situation in this bet is becoming more complicated. The Nightmare Knight escapes from 11ER Paradise. Nemesis, as a salvage team, is planning a water world. And Yulin's invasion here is equivalent to his Nightmare Knight making a mistake first and provoking the salvage team Nemesis. Nemesis's attack on the Nightmare Knight can be said to be justified and convincing. But if Woolulu ends up, the nature will be a little different. Woolulu belongs to the death side. If Woolulu helps Yulin, it would be equivalent to betrayal. The Lord of Death has every reason to send more gods to the scene. A small war will evolve into a huge god war involving countless gods and countless world ships. Yulin remains silent, not disappointed because Woolulu didn't show up. Come on. Don't forget my 10 million. Before Green disappeared, he still reminded him. The war begins. At the core of Gaia Fortress, the interface turned into a VR helmet and appeared in front of Molly. Molly is responsible for controlling the forces of Gaia Fortress. The door of the greenhouse was broken open, revealing ferocious carnivorous monsters. The vines grew wildly and took root around the Gaia Fortress, setting up a defensive net. Ready. The sky full of humanoid omnics swept across the sky like locusts. The gods in the sky were laughing. Nemesis's crazy general attack from outside the world came. A circle of green light emitted from Pangenji, who was sitting in the center of the fortress, blessing the crew with a four-leaf clover halo. Among all the people, Yulin was the only one who, after entering Pangenji's aura, was equivalent to suffering a huge negative state, causing strong discomfort and had no choice but to stay away. Old Emo, take the gun. The immortal killing spear was thrown to Emo Rendi. The human emperor's seal was thrown to Guza. Schwer's white hair was fluttering and she was in high spirits. Around her, the space was distorted, and an imaginary number of peanuts appeared and died. However, this subtle change of scene did not attract anyone's attention. When she grew up, Schwer became more sensible than when she was a child. She no longer regarded the dog as a mount, but regarded Wanger holding the human emperor's seal as a legendary plus weapon dog in the palm of her hand. She has 1+1. Greater than 2 effects. Pangenji holds Storm and Thunderbringer in his left hand and Harley Quinn's best friend in his right hand. With Yulin's help, Ruth became a registered member of 11 Paradise and picked a few practical skills and props from the warehouse, but it still took some time to grow. Now, 20 major combatants have been sent to other worlds by Yulin. Now Gaia Fortress can be said to be empty of combat power and not in its peak condition. Among the legendary props or weapons owned by Yulin, the only ones with final level attack power are Xian Spear, Human Emperor's Seal, and Deliver Sword, while Book of Ornaments, Noah's Ark number 9999 prototype is functionally classified as an auxiliary legendary prop. But there are only a few who can truly exert the power of legendary weapons. Others assist Molly and defend. Lao Emo, Wang Er, Meng Chaoqiang, and Li Yingjun, Yulin combined everyone's strengths and began to assign tasks. You are each responsible for the east, west, north, and south of Gaia Fortress. Don't let the other party break into the 500-meter range of the fortress. To defend it? Lord. Old Pan, forget it, you can do whatever you want. Navigator, temporarily load the 11 Paradise setting template. Pangenji, son of the world. There is no enemy, the saint. Meng Chaoqiang, pioneer. Molly, wise man. Li Shizhen, son of the jungle. Wang Tiandi, mascot. If it was a team fight, then what Yulin did in a hurry was to assign their respective positions. But these positionings can only add a negligible bonus to this upcoming battle. Hundreds of thousands of humanoid omnics broke into the world through the torn rift. Once they meet, their figures are like dark clouds, covering this world. No enemy took the lead, did his duty, and threw the immortal killing spear. Call out. The spear was like a dragon and electric, just like a bright meteor, passing through the center of the Omnic army. Boom boom boom. Continuous explosions covered the sky and the sun. No enemy activated ultimate intent, and the white figures were rampant in the Omnic army, and they were invulnerable. Mali controlled the Mecha army and fought with the opponent's Omnic army. There is no hesitation, now is no longer the time to engage in micromanagement. In the face of huge orders of magnitude, only mindlessly stacking numbers or using a decisive level of combat power can affect the situation of the battle. The original intention of creating the Mecha Regiment was to exist like cannon fodder in Gaia Fortress. In the past few years, Mali has continued to study and develop different models of mechas with many functions. But all mechas, under Yilin's instruction, are equipped with the most basic, core, and critical function, self-destruction. Mali was both nervous and excited. Under the holographic god's perspective, after the first batch of Unit 1 entered the siege, Mali decisively pressed the self-destruct button. In an instant, tens of thousands of number 1 units transformed into a terrifyingly powerful magic bomb swarm, blasting a hole in the swarm of omnics in the sky. The glow of their explosion is as bright as fireworks, lighting up the world in a flash of prosperity. Boom. The scene in front of me is like a thick black cloud that has been blown out of a cloud hole, and the dawn of hope shines from the sky. The first wave of the Omnic army's assault was easily blocked, but before the members in Gaia Fortress could rejoice, more numerous and larger Omnics than the first wave were rushing through the cracks to kill them as if they were free. Enter the world. Storm Bird, Steel Centipede, Digger, and Pearl, in the water world, the awakening ability intelligent weapons that allowed the 4 emperors to stand on the top of the sea, have now become Nemesis's mass-produced arms. There are thousands of each kind. Thousands of storm birds flapped their wings, and the hurricane rolled out ravines on the sea surface. Thunder and lightning flashed as far as the eye could see. The twisting steel centipedes dart up and down in the clouds, and the chainsaws on their mouthparts rotate wildly. The changes in the airflow they cause resound above the world, sounding like the roar of a herd of beasts, which is frightening. The round-digging beasts that are hundreds of meters tall are the awakened omnics of Amakusa hero. They are like high-speed rotating tires. The surface of their bodies is covered with dense spikes. Driven by the jet of flames, they rotate and smash towards Gaia. The defensive canopy of the fortress. One after another, the Pearl Omnic ships, accompanied by the teleportation light falling on the sea, fired bunches of orbital electromagnetic guns towards the Gaia fortress. Yilin takes off. Arriving above the clouds spread out by omnics. Below, it's like turbulence with 2 colors trying to swallow each other. The moment Yilin opened her eyes, she looked divine. Raising his head, pipes protruded from the ripples and inserted into his back. Link successful. Calypso's voice rang in Yilin's ears, and Yilin hyperlinked to the world ship. Yilin made thousands of calculations about the outcome of this battle. He understands, he knows that no matter how angry or unwilling he is, it will not help. The comparison of odds placed in the gambling game is actually equivalent to their winning rate, which is extremely slim. From the beginning, he understood this. Amorendi, Schwerer, Wang, all of them. Roar among the omnics and keep fighting. The successive explosions are like the glow of human beings, faint but eye-catching. But they're still trying. Yilin closed and opened her eyes, switching visions. On the azure source sea, dots of red light surrounded him like stars in the sky. Unfortunately, this is not Z1. The shape of the world ship changed, and the world turned into a sea giant hundreds of millions of feet tall, standing in the source sea. Far away. A huge sphere with twisted steel bars and rusty colors on it. 2 red lights suddenly lit up. It was like a god. In this bright fireworks festival, he opened his indifferent eyes and watched the creatures step forward. The moment of destruction. Nemesis. Yulin looked at the metal ball from a distance and said the other person's name. It is, God. A group of crazy Homo sapiens uploaded their consciousness to the center, unified and combined, twisted and reborn, and the omnic life Nemesis was born. Consciousness is uploaded, machinery ascends, and immortality is achieved. You should be able to deeply understand the weakness and powerlessness of human beings, Nemesis said in a cold voice. No matter how weak and powerless human beings are, they will laugh together, have a picnic together, empathize with the same thing, be angry with the same enemy, and fight endlessly for the same goal. Of course, I think you've forgotten how it feels. Yulin sneered. Beep beep beep. Nemesis, only the weak unite. But I know that you were once a collection of human beings. I hope your omnic will not let you forget this. That was the past. Nemesis's voice showed no anger, and Yulin's taunting was obviously ineffective. It said unhurriedly, we are, omnic, Nemesis. Nemesis seemed to have no intention of chatting with Yulin. From the beginning, just as Yulin had calculated it in advance, Nemesis had also calculated it hundreds of millions of times. The result of Yulin's calculation is, he can't win. The result of Nemesis's calculation is, it cannot lose. One person and one god, from their respective perspectives, strangely reached the same consensus. We won. When it says this, it's not a boast, let alone self-encouragement. Just a little bit in advance, issue an absolute declaration of victory. On Nemesis, blue light quickly gathered, and the illusory data streams turned into reality. That's a cannon muzzle. But the muzzle is as huge as the world, like a star, entrenched in the corner of the source sea. In the muzzle, light began to condense. There were stars, the sun and the moon, time and space, and a chaotic information flow that represented everything. It's over, it's the source energy cannon, which directly blasts out the ship-destroying level weapon of the source. It seems that their reminder still has an effect, otherwise Nemesis will not use this level of weapon. To deal with you. Green sighed softly in Yulin's ear, get away quickly, you can't fight. That's too late. The avatar of the world, the giant of the sea, clenches his fist. Inside the world ship, eternal night falls, the temperature drops sharply, and the air concentration drops. Vast patches of vegetation and jungle withered. The mountains were annihilated into dust. The panicked humans fell to the ground in the process of escaping, and in the blink of an eye they died into bones and corpses. In an instant, under the mobilization of the Lord of the world, the life of this world was ruthlessly transformed into the purest source. The huge world withered and everything withered in an instant. Yulin holds the key to the world, extracts the source of the world, and condenses it into his fist. The throne of infinity shines brightly in Yulin's core. Ultimate intention turns the world into white, like a giant whose body is burning with pale flames. Light gathered around his right fist. 1. The space around the left fist collapsed. 0. Both become 1. Two colors, two extremes, forcibly blended into a condensed beam of light that mixed black and white and faded into ink gray, facing the ship-destroying weapon, the source energy cannon. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1180. Inside the world ship. Amorendi, who was swinging his fists wantonly among the omnics like a white meteor, felt his chest tighten, and an inexplicable sense of crisis made him raise his head. His body flashed, and in an instant, he moved back and forth in 1 second, taking everyone back to the fortress one by one. Only Amorendi with extreme intent can do this. When the crew members outside the fortress defense canopy were brought back to the Gaia fortress by Amoren enemies at the same time. A moment. There was silence in everyone's ears. It was not quiet in the traditional sense, but suddenly, the sound of gunfire, whistling, thunder, vibrations, and surges, all the sounds disappeared without a trace in a very short moment. A ray of light plowed through the sky, and the sky was torn apart by that strange light. Everyone, including Amorendi, looked at the torn sky in shock. At this moment, they all had the same illusion. They were like little dolls living in a box. Suddenly one day, a giant roughly opened the box, and they, humble people, were looking at the giant who opened the box helplessly. Boundless shadows approached from the torn sky, and it was a face that could not be described in words. The twisted steel, the color of decayed rust, and the two red eyes, which looked like the sun and moon respectively, became the only colors in the dark sky. They don't know what's going on in the world outside. They didn't even know that Yulin took the form of the world, extracted the source of this world, sacrificed all the creatures in the water world, and struck this punch. Just to block Nemesis' world-destroying weapon, the energy cannon. Beep beep beep. Gaia's core light ball appeared above the fortress without any warning. Beep beep beep. The red warning light flashed crazily in the defensive canopy. Execute the reserved forced escape procedure. The forced escape will be completed within 5 seconds. When the forced escape procedure is in progress, the deed will be thrown at the node at the same time. 5. 4. 3. Amorendi. Schwetter. Emperor Wang Tian, Wang. Molly, huh. Under everyone's feet, circles of light flashed. I don't know who set up the teleportation formation under their feet in advance. Whoosh. 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 Rays of teleportation light flashed through, and the crew members disappeared from the Gaia fortress one after another. In just 3 seconds, there were very few people left on the Gaia fortress. At the same time, in the collapsed world, Amorendi sailed for 3 years and set out over the 108 nodes. Huge pillars suddenly dropped from the plane. Boom. 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 The core of Gaia faithfully executed the instructions Yulin left in advance, and accurately placed 108 deeds on every node. Submission completed. No. Old friend. Amorendi noticed something, and a strong anger surged out from deep in his heart. Don't panic, Lao Emo. When Amorendi was about to rush into the sky and compete with God. Gaia Fortress is shrouded in intense white light. Gaia Fortress changes from reality to reality, and the escape route opens in ripples. In front of Amorendi, Yulin's holographic projection appeared. That was a message he had recorded in advance. Information. Yulin looked serious and raised an index finger. I have deduced the future 13,620 times, but among the 13,620 futures, we can win in only one of them. But, not now, and certainly not here. We have failed, escaped, and retreated. But all the frustration is for the moment of victory. I will use my inhuman body to temporarily abandon my body to do something. Only in this way can we win. To win. The holographic projection of Yulin smiled slightly, confident and calm, just like the strategizing administrator Amorendi knew back then. We will finally see the dawn. The shocked Amorendi stopped struggling. 2. 1. Escape completed. Call out. Gaia Fortress, including everyone, disappeared from this world without a trace. The lower layer of the source sea. The place of perdition. The source energy cannon's light went out. Half of the sea giant's body was in tatters. The destruction of the world's incarnation means that half of this world was blown away by source energy cannons. But if Yulin hadn't forcibly extracted the source of the world and formed a punch, the trajectory of the source energy cannon would have deviated from an angle of 13 degrees, and the water world that had eaten Nemesis's ship-destroying weapon head-on would have been destroyed. At that moment, it was completely destroyed, not even the dregs were left. Logically speaking, Nemesis, as a salvage team, would never use such crude methods to plunder the world. But when it was forced to intervene in the gamble, what it was thinking about was no longer plunder, but how to ensure the victory of this battle. What it wants is not high probability, let alone should be able to win, but 100% victory and to reduce the survival rate of the Nightmare Knight to 0%. Inside the world ship, all life is destroyed, and no one survives. Under Yilin's violent extraction, the remaining source in the world ship was no longer able to maintain the elements needed for all living things, and became a withered Death Star. The first shot was fired. The second shot has yet to come. Obviously, the energy cannon has a cool-down time. But for Nemesis, victory was sealed. But Nemesis noticed that the Nightmare Knight's followers fled here. A boring ploy. Nemesis commented quietly. The content of the bet is destruction of the Nightmare Knights. Or the salvage team, the Omnic God Nemesis, was destroyed. Yilin sent others to other worlds through the passage of 11 Paradise. Even if Yilin died, they would not be able to win the bet for the four masters of the Mokeng right now. Call it a text trap or a boring little ploy, but Yilin's move did cause Nemesis a lot of trouble. If it wants to win this battle faithfully, it has to work hard. Search for traces of other relatives within the source sea. But it calculated that in the end, its winning rate was 100%. There was no suspense and no other possibility. It's nothing more than a waste of a little more insignificant time. For the eternal they, the most indispensable thing is time. Hundreds, thousands, and 10,000 years, for Nemesis, it is just a blink of an eye, or a restart, update, and formatting. Really, Yilin's figure stood on top of the world in the body of the giant of the sea. The tiny Yilin seemed to be facing a planet directly. He smiled. Guess, what other gifts did I leave for you? Beep beep beep. Hear the words. Nemesis swept towards the water world, and after 1,000th of a second of calculation, he came up with the answer. Boring energy amplifier. It noticed that Yilin stayed in the water world and made the final arrangements. Yet, the dilapidated world ship, the embodiment of the world, suddenly moved towards Nemesis. What would happen if the information contained in the entire world was compressed into the ultimate moment, and then multiplied 100 times? Base. Yilin finished speaking. The contents of 108 deeds reacted violently. Inside the world, 108 corners lit up the night with light. But what really ignites the night is not the light when 108 root deeds are activated at the same time. That's fire. It is the endless tenacity of this race that ignites the burning fire in the heart. I guess it's art. The huge world is compressed into an infinitesimal point. Distortion, collapse, squeezing, and expansion all happen simultaneously in an infinitesimal point. In front of Nemesis, a world ship suddenly formed a black hole after extreme compression and expansion. The stream of light rushed towards the black hole crazily, and then there was a moment of stillness. Everything was silent. The light in Nemesis's eyes dimly extinguished, as if he had eaten a super invincible electronic pulse. Boom. Green once said. There are only 3 types of existence that can move freely within the source sea. The hunters of disorder, entropy, and the overlords. Not even Nemesis can. That huge metal ball is a huge world ship. The real Nemesis is an information life hiding under the steel body. Within the source sea, the annihilation of the world is happening all the time. Like stars, flickering bright and dark, the destruction of each world is like a star, gradually becoming dim. But this process is cyclical and gradual. The disorder hunter will be in the sunken land, constantly breaking down an unowned world ship into the purest and disordered information and returning it to the source sea. Whether it is a god or a world ship, everything will eventually be broken down into pure information. Such as animal and human corpses, they will eventually be decomposed by bacteria and microorganisms. This is the reason. But Nemesis's intelligence center was in chaos for a moment when the great collapse was staged in front of him. They can't understand. It's impossible to understand. The world ship is a precious resource even for the Overlord. The world ship will be used to consolidate one's authority, to operate, and to trade. But that's not how it's used. Nemesis' countless calculations were all based on the premise of normal logic. However, that mere Homo sapiens actually used such a brutal method to compress and detonate a world, triggering the great collapse within the origin sea. Even gods would not do this. This is illogical, irrational, and illogical. It was difficult for Nemesis to understand, so much so that this confusion caused a brief panic in its operation center. The light of the great collapse spread out around the black hole with the black hole as the center. Thousands of worlds in Nemesis camp were affected at the same time, and even the bioenergy sources in the world ship also suffered a lot of damage. I do not know how long it has been. Apocalypse, which belongs to the nightmare, changed from bright to dim, and in the end even the bat shape was difficult to distinguish, leaving only a faint dot. Snapped. At last. Went out. After the collapse, where the water world should have been, chaotic information formed a source storm, and the raging information flow converged into halos of different colors. Every time the halo lights up, it means the remaining aftershocks after the great collapse. He died. Nemesis quickly removed useless operational logic from the hub. Update completed. Version 3243.123.3.663.21. A perfect omnic life, capable of self-renewal and evolution. They regain their usual sanity and calmness. According to calculations, it is impossible for any life form below the C sequence to survive from the center of the Great Collapse. The scarlet light of Apocalypse faded away, which also confirmed this point. In the center of the chaotic information flow, a group of wrecks float. The flesh, and bones can vaguely distinguish the appearance of the original Nightmare Knight. Half of the Nightmare Knight's head was blown off, and his empty eyes looked straight in this direction, as if full of unwillingness and regret. Nemesis stretched out his steel tentacle arm, waited for the aftershocks to disappear, and then took away the trophy. Just in the complete silence. Not far from the wreck of the Nightmare Knight, a bat flapped its wings gracefully, tearing apart the aftershocks of the source storm and landing on the head easily. Ah, failed. The little bat made an annoyed sound. This is a big loss. While complaining, the little bat chopped off the head with a small pink geo and cursed, "Let you be brave. Let you not run away. Let you be arrogant. Let you overestimate your capabilities. Beep beep beep." Looking at the lower level of the origin sea, after the great collapse occurred, the funny scene unfolded in the chaotic information storm. Nemesis Intelligence Center was running at high speed, speculating on the purpose of the Nightmare Lord's appearance. The Nightmare Lord lost 10 million yuan. She is very angry. The Nightmare Knight is dead. There is a debt relationship between them. The Lord of Nightmares is stingy. In conclusion, there is an 18% probability, the Nightmare Lord will use the Nightmare Knight's corpse to vent his anger. There is an 81% probability, the Nightmare Lord will use the corpse of the Nightmare Knight to repay the debt and make up for the loss as much as possible. Remaining 1% probability, unable to guess, calculation failed. When Nemesis was frantically consuming computing power for calculations. The stingy green has finished venting his anger. That head had been trampled to pieces. Green took out an abacus with his backhand, made calculations on the small abacus for a moment, and said to himself, "Tisk, 1,324 deaths will not be enough to repay the debt you owe." After finishing speaking, Green rolled up his wings and held a small pink bottle between the tips of his wings. There was a decorative pattern of a bat on the cork. Boo! Green uncorked the bottle and transformed into a bat wearing a mini apron. She hummed a strange song and happily swept the minced meat floating in the sea into the bottle bit by bit. A strange tone was heard in the aftershocks of the storm. There was a girl born into royalty. As the old ballad goes, she is the most beautiful girl in the royal family. She's in the stone castle every night. Sleep alone. Any sound that can awaken even the dead. I can't even wake her up. Grown-ups. Nemesis finally couldn't help it anymore. Sorry to disturb your interest. But, he is our trophy. Lord Green, the Lord of Nightmares, who was in high spirits, humming, wearing an apron, cleaning, and contributing to Yuanhai's public health, heard this sentence, and his humming suddenly stopped. She just finished packing up the corpse and tightly corked the bottle with satisfaction. Green smiled and raised his wings by his ears, smiling gently. Hey, Xiao Nai, what did you just say? I was busy cleaning up and didn't hear clearly. Nemesis was serious and prepared to repeat what he just said. Sorry to disturb your mood, but... Base. The sentence was not finished. In front of Nemesis's eyes, a scarlet light swept across the Origin Sea. A graceful woman wearing a red cloak, whose face could not be seen clearly, appeared in front of Nemesis without any warning. The woman slapped Nemesis' metal shell. The sound is numb and haunting. You are teaching me how to do nightmare. In the scarlet light, the Lord of Nightmares descended, licking his red lips with an interesting look. In her other hand, she held a small bottle, which contained the corpse of the Nightmare Knight. Beep beep beep. Nemesis's small universe was gradually infected with red light and dyed with the color of the Nightmare Lord. Planets, one by one, twisted strangely in the scarlet light, turning into the shape of the Nightmare Lord. Billions of creatures wailed in their sleep, screaming in pain. Nemesis was silent. The calculation told them that once they repeated that sentence completely, they would be greeted by the anger from the Nightmare Lord. All because the true form of the Lord of Nightmares came to the lower level of the Origin Sea, the place of sinking. You don't think that I really don't have any temper after you killed my lovely knight, do you? The Lord of Nightmares removed his small hand from the metal body, and there was a drop of crystal clear blood on it. Green opened the lid and stuffed the drop of blood into the bottle without any waste. After keeping it properly, he smiled at Nemesis and said, You should be glad that the outcome of this bet has not been decided yet, otherwise, I would not have, if you are subject to any restrictions, wipe you off. Green's choice of words is very casual. Not killing, not destroying, not slaughtering. It seemed to her that killing Nemesis was as simple and easy as wiping, and she could just raise her hand. Although Green was not angry, that palm affected the hundreds of billions of biological batteries in the Nemesis world ship. Nemesis's calculation logic paused for a moment. So much so that it didn't notice at all that a drop of blood quietly soaked into Nemesis's world barrier, leaving no trace. Roll. The scarlet light that infected the lower Origin Sea subsided like a tide along with Green's words. When Nemesis came to his senses again, a little bat, holding the small bottle in its arms, flapped its wings happily and flew away. Yes. The Nightmare Lord was right. If it weren't for the constraints of the gamble, they would have died thousands of times if they dared to disobey the Lord of Nightmares. Nemesis silently added a new rule to his operating logic, being worldly and observant. The gamble isn't over yet. Next, Nemesis still needs to find the surviving dependents of the Nightmare Knight in the vast sunken land, and kill them one by one before he can win the bet. Although it takes time and energy, there is no risk at all, and his winning rate is 100%. There is no suspense. Green flew and flew. Shake and shake. The posture is coquettish and enchanting. Fly where no one is watching. The little bat caressed his little chest and breathed a sigh of relief. Tisk, I really didn't notice that tattered iron lump. He. Green tapped the small bottle in his hand with his wing. Shaking gently, the pink bottle became transparent, and the corpse remains inside were automatically spliced into the shape of urine at some point. In the small bottle of nightmare, Yulin was naked and naked, eyes tightly closed, her quiet expression seemed to be in deep sleep. Now, you are mine. Green used his little tongue to suck and lick the bottle. The fluff trembled and he looked very happy. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1181. Nemesis is the true god. Within its body, there are complete worlds, and world ships are connected in the form of fleets. The plural collection of world ships is the small universe. Therefore, what Yulin entered was Nemesis's private universe. Boo! The end of the endless black space. A white hole as big as a finger hole suddenly opened up from an infinitesimal speck, and a blood-colored crystal as small as a dust particle was spit out by the white hole. In the vast deep space, such a tiny blood crystal would not be noticed by any being, not even Nemesis. Compared with the world in front of us, a speck of dust is too small to be worth mentioning. The blood crystal slowly made irregular and random turning movements at the end of deep space. Here. No light. No air. No life. There is no sound. Here, it is universe in a broad sense. Space in the narrow sense. In fact, it is the edge of fleet space. Because here, there is no need to spend any resources to create conditions that can allow life to survive. Here, it is nothingness. It's like a completely blank space in a beta game where no data, modeling, characters, volume clouds, or physical collision rules have been written. The tiny blood crystals are still turning. Gravity from all directions causes this dusty blood crystal to drift in this direction and that direction from time to time, drifting aimlessly. 1 year. 2 years. 10 years. In the edge of deep space where even the concept of time has become blurry, this blood crystal has spent a long time. There are many strange garbage floating at the edge of deep space. There's the tattered wreckage of a space station. There are unmanned satellite constellations. During the long years of drifting, blood crystals fell on these wrecks from time to time. Every time it floats out from a wreckage, the blood crystal becomes stronger. Gradually, the powerful blood crystal squirmed at the end of the deep space and began to change its shape. At the beginning, a pair of hands grew on the blood crystal. Gradually, legs grew. Finally, the squirming bloody crystal block stuck out its head. One day, the blood crystal appears to have become a human figure. Call. Finally, it's grown out. The blood crystal man has long been accustomed to moving in the space environment. He does not need breathing, oxygen, or nutrients, because he does not have a body at this moment. The blood of the entropy beast is indeed my true body. Yulin thought. His voice cannot propagate in a vacuum environment, but when a person has been there for a long time, he will always open his mouth habitually to simulate the feeling of speaking. I wonder if Nemesis likes this little surprise. Yulin invaded here as a blood incarnation and spent so many years sucking in various debris and sources that escaped in the space, and finally grew into a form that can move freely. He continued to drift, trying to strengthen his body. Recalling their failure in the water world many years ago, and their determination at that moment. In the pictures Hilishu saw, their Gaia fortress had no chance of winning. In the end, he resisted the source energy cannon and drained a world dry. He used infinity and ultimate intention to compete, but he could only barely deflect the orbit of the source energy cannon by 13 angles. When Yulin witnessed the universe inside the Nemesis world fleet with her own eyes, Yulin was deeply moved by the wisdom of the strong man cutting his wrists at that time. On the gambling table, the difference between the odds of the two is 100 times, which is not unreasonable. No matter how much Yulin cheated, no matter how confident she was, she could not defeat Nemesis, who had traversed the chaotic channel for many eras. The reason is simple, Foundation. The background of the two is hugely different. In the Caribbean water world, no matter how Yulin operates, it is only the quantity of a world. As far as the eye can see. In the distance of deep space, a cloud-like galaxy surrounds a burning star in the center. Layers of stars and space stations rotate at a constant speed like layers of spherical bodies around the star. Between the galaxies, countless orbits can be vaguely seen, connecting the planets. According to Green, Nemesis is the god of omnics. They use living creatures as batteries and squeeze their computing power to build a perfect universe. Visible to the naked eye, the nebula in the center exudes a strong smell of source. It is very possible that Nemesis's batteries are all stored there. What the hell is a super flesh ball? Yulin complained secretly. He knew that his destination was probably the nebula. The gap between him and Nemesis is too big. Yulin can only control one world at most. But what Nemesis controls is a universe that connects world ships together. Nemesis' world-destroying source energy cannon can easily destroy a world. There is no comparison. This is why Hilishu cannot see a victorious future. But the message Yulin left for Morendi clearly stated that there is one way that can lead to the future. That is, take advantage of it when it is unprepared, attack its chrysanthemum, collapse internally, and kill two birds with one stone. The collapse of a giant always starts from within. Since Nemesis is indestructible when attacking from the front, Yulin plans to attack from the inside. Therefore, after discussing with Green, Yulin now invaded here. Analyzing the authority of omnic machinery is not just to enhance one's own strength, but to make necessary preparations for the current step. In order not to let Nemesis notice it, Yulin even staged a heroic sacrifice in front of Nemesis's eyes, and even his friends believed it. When Green, the Lord of Nightmares, went berserk, it looked like he was going berserk, but in fact, with that palm, he secretly broke through the barrier and sent a drop of Yulin's blood into Nemesis's universe. Nemesis's dictionary lacked the words sophistication and cunning, so it was natural that he would not have thought that Green, a stoic and petty person, would secretly do such exciting things as cheating. To be honest, when Yulin was discussing the size with Green, Green agreed as soon as he flapped his wings, his face flushed. Obviously, this shameless behavior gave the Lord of Nightmares a long-lost excitement. As the saying goes, light is worse than darkness, darkness is worse than stealing, and stealing is worse than stealing over and over again. How happy this is! The special feature of the Entropy Beast bloodline allows Yulin to separate the body and blood alone, thereby transferring the soul, that is, the core data, to that drop of blood, and invades Nemesis's small universe. Green used a small bottle to store his body properly, so that Apocalypse would not shine here, let alone reveal his whereabouts. In the Chi Refiner's worldview, this move is called rebirth by dripping blood. Perfect. All these plans involve risks and narrow escapes, but as long as Green is involved, the risk is reduced by 99%. Well, it's really the right thing to have a good relationship with the stingy Green and go along with him. Just as Yulin sighed, suddenly, he subconsciously trembled in the deep air, and his blood trembled a few times. At the moment when she thought about Green being stingy, Yulin suddenly had the illusion of being licked. Yulin gradually understood what Green had said before. They spend a long time waiting in silence and looking for fun in boredom. The speed of time passing inside the ship is different from that in the outside world. Perhaps Yulin has been drifting in Nemesis's small universe for decades or hundreds of years. The Morendi and others who escaped to another world may have only experienced a few short months, or they may have experienced a period of more than 100 years, exhausted their lifespan, and turned into corpses and bones. However, the follow-up of the escaped Gaia Fortress family members is no longer what Yulin needs to worry about now. Taking a step back, Morendi can really live in another world, live calmly, and die of old age for hundreds of years. In a sense, it can be regarded as a happy ending. Yulin was relieved. Now that he existed as a blood incarnation, he could theoretically shape his body into any shape. He bent his legs, turned his hands into two bloody blades, and carved several simple circuits on the soles of his feet. Over the years eating and drinking in Nemesis territory, Yulin had accumulated a lot. Call out. Yulin was like a human-shaped rocket, turning into a meteor-like light arrow and advancing forward. The speed is not fast, and the forward speed is difficult to discern with the naked eye. But Yulin was not in a hurry. He knew early on that it was not an easy task to beat a true god with a complete world shipped to death at the gambling table. Being impatient has no effect at all. Fortunately, Yulin's memory contains many books that he has not yet fully understood. Divination, alchemy, magic, crystal patterns, and alchemy. Not to mention other things, he had read a lot of books in Tianjian sect, but he didn't use them much. Now, I have a lot of time to review this knowledge again, check for omissions and fill in the gaps, and further integrate it. How are academic masters developed? Without him, I can only learn the new by reviewing the past. Thus, young Rin's interstellar drift began. At the same time, there was a flash of light. Gaia's fortress tears space apart. The sun was scorching, and the high temperature burned the air. Under the sun, there were endless undulating sand dunes. Boom! Gaia's fortress crashes into the dunes. Amorendi and others struggled to crawl out of the sand dunes, spitting the sand in their mouths. Molly searched for his shadow in the sand for a long time, but couldn't find it. She sat on the hot sand like a lost soul and suddenly started crying sadly. Whoa! The rest of the crew were dejected. In that battle, they lost their captain and a great man. Dad, it's okay. Xiaorugjiu sat high up, her legs swinging alternately. She put an index finger under her sharp chin, closed her eyes, twitched her nose, and said something incredible. When asked by others, Xiaorugjiu said firmly, "Daddy is not dead." Schwer can smell Daddy's scent. Then she pointed in front of her, "Look, Daddy's scent is here." Schwer's words are confusing. How can you see the taste? But Seal has always had a strange connection with Yiren. Amorendi told the message Yilin left before leaving. Others can only choose to believe it. But there is hope after all. Gaia was very good at it. Amorendi shook his fist, and Gaia took the initiative to hand over the temporary command authority to Amorendi. Gaia explained that the reason why their crew teleported ahead of the fortress was because in Captain Rin's eyes, the importance of the crew far exceeded his plan, so he made such a setting. This hindsight explanation made all the members shed tears and once again lamented the captain's greatness. After a brief analysis of the environment here, the Gaia Fortress team decided to stay in place and open up a defensive canopy. A week passes in the blink of an eye. The sky is full of yellow sand, and the hot climate makes it impossible for any grass to grow here. At a glance, this is a world without any life. Amorendi and others spent a week on the sand dunes. With the rapid consumption of food and fresh water stored in the fortress, how to survive in the harsh environment became a problem they would face. Gaia, can you teleport again? Molly raised the kettle, moistened her dry lips a little, and asked after waking up from the nightmare again. Gaia replied, the remaining sources can carry out 2 random transmissions, or 1 designated transmission at locked coordinates. Do you want to carry out the transmission? Molly shook her head quickly. When Yilin was here, she was always careful about the remaining sources. Molly could understand how precious sources are to a world. If they rashly waste the number of teleports, once they are at the end of their rope, they will be greeted by the real end. I went to look for food. Amorendi, who had not spoken much, suddenly frowned, looked in a certain direction, swung his sleeves, and stepped on the yellow sand, like an arrow leaving the string, drifting away. In the blink of an eye, Amorendi's tiny figure appeared. The figure was several kilometers away. Boom! The sand dunes shook violently, and huge objects rushed out from under the yellow sand. It was a huge sandworm. After opening its mouth, the sandworm's mouth full of sharp teeth is like a bottomless black hole. No, the food is here. Amorendi's eyes were shining, he was laughing, his body was ignited with white flames, he was gearing up, he was extremely excited. A giant sandworm with a diameter of 1.3 kilometers, a length of dozens of kilometers, and 90% of its body buried under the dunes. In a daze, it lacked brain cells. In front of this little food that was not even enough to fit between its teeth, it gave birth to a kind of the illusion that I turned into food. Yulin drifted for a long time. The difficulty of drifting in space in this posture is beyond expectation. But barely acceptable. He forgot about time and concentrated on drifting in the empty space. Gradually, Yulin entered the nebula. Planets move in unscientific trajectories, and countless steel tracks connect the planets. In the center of the nebula, there are huge rings of stars arranged axially, like a huge gun barrel, extending to the end of the starry sky. Source energy cannon. Yulin looked at the scene in surprise and secretly thought that it was no wonder that Nemesis energy cannon was so terrifying because it borrowed the power of the super fleshy ball. Observing from a distance, Yulin carefully memorized the trajectory and arrangement of the nebulae, maybe using them one day. When it comes to knowledge, Yulin never has too much. Yulin is now very close to the outer reaches of Nemesis' inner universe. So far, Nemesis has not noticed that a little bug has sneaked into his fleet. On each planet, the red light is full of life and death, as if something is moving on the planet. The 24 main planets rotate in complex circular orbits. Outside the orbit of the main star, there are also satellite groups operating in their own orbits. These celestial bodies are the main components of the super fleshy sphere. Within the orbits between planets are transportation channels, with many materials and flowing light moving at high speed in the orbits. Yulin silently counted the days and counted on her fingers. After another 3 years, Yulin chose one of the planets and prepared to land. Layers of free-flowing rays of light wrapped around the body. Yulin transformed her body into a shuttle shape. After approaching one of the planets, she allowed the terrifying gravity to pull her. Yulin turned into a bloody meteor, falling to the surface of the planet like a meteorite from the sky. Call out. The faint blood-colored light was particularly hidden among the red light. Yulin breaks through the atmosphere. The fierce air friction made Yulin burn at high temperature. But with advance arrangements, Yulin easily carried the flames around her, passed through the clouds, and fell to the ground. Base. The moment he broke through the clouds, Yulin's eyes suddenly felt enlightened. The gloomy sky was filled with haze, and fleets of aircraft patrolled the sky. A transport-type Omni machine with a strong mechanical arm is carrying heavy objects according to a predetermined trajectory. The ground is covered with steel facilities covered with oil. The flat surface, seen from a high altitude, looks like a complete steel body without any gaps. Among them, below Yulin's landing point is a facility that looks like a stadium, surrounded by a high wall with a sunken center. There are many thick pipes outside the facility, rumbling and vibrating, as if they are constantly transporting some kind of object to the stadium in a fully automated manner. That's it. At first glance it looks like a safe landing spot. Yulin made an instant decision and adjusted her posture in the air. Boom. Yulin was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he hit a small raised surface inside the building and on the edge of the high wall, creating a dent about 10 meters in diameter. The sudden movement alerted the nearby Omnics. In just 10 seconds, several teams of Omnics of different types of work came to Yulin's landing point to check. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1182. The crater is so obvious that even Tibet can't hide it. Yulin quietly crawled in the shadows and observed secretly. Several patrol planes flew over from high altitude, and their infrared rays were scanned over Yilin's body, but nothing unusual was found. Yilin's current posture is not human at all. Strictly speaking, there are no vital signs at all. Perhaps Yilin is treated as a dead object. Hey, just an omnic. Several groups of air patrol aircraft returned to their work after not noticing anything unusual. Yilin lingered for a while. In case. At this time, there is a small intelligent machine with two telescope-like eyes standing on its square body. The two eyes are shining with the light of wisdom. It is turning on its tracks and walking towards the side. This omnic looks a little different from the others. If I have to say it, it gives Yilin the feeling that it is a particularly responsible type, different from other omnics that punch into work. Wall.E arrives at an abnormal location. An electronic sound that is indistinguishable from male to female comes out of the omniscient sound-producing component of the Foley self-proclaimed Wally. They said there was nothing unusual. Wall.E feels the need for further scanning. Promotion, salary increase, and reaching the peak of mechanical skills are just around the corner. There are lofty dreams in this small body of steel, and Wally began to scan. Yilin shrank her head. Beep beep beep. Suspicious reaction detected. Wally moved toward the shadow where Yilin was hiding. As it moved, it scratched its head with its thin robotic arm. Apparently, this strange suspicious reaction was not recorded in its database. Yilin knew she couldn't hide it anymore. He stretched out his 5 fingers, and inside the hub, at the base of the throne, a metallic light lit up. The crystal blood was at the end of the finger, with bunches of tiny blood fibers sticking out, which looked like the ports of network cables. Laugh. Yilin appeared like a thug and stabbed the port into Vali's body. Sizzling. Omnic infestation. Yilin made full preparations before coming. He has analyzed the power of omnics. Although it is not as powerful as Nemesis, it is undoubtedly a dimensionality reduction attack against a small reconnaissance aircraft. Wally's movements paused for a moment. The red light of the eyes has a touch of dark blue. 10. You are just lazy. Wally instantly regarded Yilin as his good friend Omnic, and lovingly patted Yilin's waist with his robotic arm. Its physical height could only barely reach Yilin's waist. If you let your supervisor know, it will be troublesome. You don't want your supervisor to know either. Wally said something weird. 10 screws, Wall.E decided to keep it secret for you. The reason why omnics are called omnics is because they possess simple intelligence. Able to communicate and even negotiate prices. 1. Yilin habitually bargained without pain. Make a deal. Wally raised his robotic arm. Yilin changed his form slightly. The round arms and thighs were shaped into square shapes by Yilin. At least on the surface, he doesn't look like a traitor among the omnics. Wally walked in front of him. Yilin followed Wally, sneaking into the port and reading the data in Wally's center. Soon, Yilin understood the current situation. The location he is currently in is a place called Area 11 in the Nemesis universe. Nemesis divided its microcosm into 24 zones. The Omnics are a race of people with clearly defined hierarchies. From the moment they were created, they have been given a strict hierarchy and authority. But Nemesis has given the Omnics humane management. As long as they work hard, they will have the opportunity to improve their level. This is the promotion and salary increase in Wally's concept. In the concept of Wally, there are 4 most precious things. Salary, screws. Promotion, advanced parts. Food, fine engine oil. Wife, female omnic. Quite, down to earth. Wally's dream is to work hard, exchange for screws, buy high-end parts, improve his configuration, and leave here. Yilin followed Wally and made a few rounds, discovering that this place was actually a waste disposal station. Many flying omnics grabbed the life-saving capsules with the indicator lights turned off and threw them into designated places for stacking. Multifunctional machines such as Wally are responsible for sorting the garbage, and then using carrying machines equipped with advanced robotic arms to send the sorted garbage to designated reactors. The types of garbage can be roughly divided into organic garbage, recyclable garbage, and biological battery remains. Organic waste is the general term for biological battery excrement. Recyclable garbage is some scrap iron, which can be recycled. As for the remains of the biobattery, Yulin followed Volley and took a look. In the life-sustaining cabin, there was a human corpse that had long lost its luster, with a bald head without a hair. On the surface of the corpse, there are many connectors for connection. Regarding what Nemesis did, Yulin did not have any extreme emotions such as anger. Each god has a different way of operating his own world ship. Nemesis, the god of omnic machines, uses human beings as battery, but he is just fulfilling the maximum power principle. What Wally has to do when sorting garbage is also very simple. After deforming its thin robotic arm, it turns into a confusing stamp. Cover it once, cover it again. After being stamped, a sorting mark will be left on the surface of the corresponding garbage, and the handling machine will read these signals and send the garbage to different places. Wally worked very hard. Yulin slightly modified Wally's logic and added 10 is Wall.e's good friend. Fortunately, the Omnic dictionary has sufficient understanding of the term friend definition, omnic machines that can help each other, drink fine motor oil together, and date girls together. Cheers. For the sake of friendship. Arriving at Wally's residence, a small room filled with old model mechanical parts and a simple charging station, Wally skillfully found a cup, poured half a cup of black engine oil into it, and then threw away a bright screw. A simple drink is all it takes. Wally first gave Yulin his favorite work, and after letting Yulin taste it, he moved his butt and inserted his butt into the charging pile. I charge first, 10, you are next. The implication is that it is plugged in first, and then Yulin is plugged in the same way. Yulin silently looked at the part where Wally was penetrated, twitched the corner of his mouth, and quickly shook his head. I have enough power. Shaking the steel cup, Yulin silently stared at the engine oil in the cup, analyzing the ingredients inside. After a while, Yulin was surprised to find that the engine oil was actually rich in protein and inorganic salts such as sodium and potassium. The only problem was that it was mixed with toxic heavy metals, which affected the taste. Soul cooking. The effect of his skill is everywhere. Yulin reached out and patted the cup. A black light flashed, and Yulin calmly drank the cup of toxic motor oil that was rich in protein, inorganic salts, and heavy metals. With the blessing of soul cooking technique, the taste has a bit of sesame paste texture in the mouth, which surprises Yulin. While drinking low-quality engine oil, Yulin chatted with Volley. Yulin discovered that Nemesis's Omnic was intelligent enough and could communicate normally. Wally said that 455,568 hours ago, the biological batteries in Universe Area 24 experienced crash to varying degrees, causing their workload to skyrocket. Yulin felt that the time point 450,000 hours ago that Wally mentioned was most likely the impact of the Great Collapse outside the fleet. Or maybe it was the consequences of Green's rage. In short, the huge number of crashes this time are related to him. 455,568 hours, converted, Yulin has been drifting in outer space for about 50 years. Time is not forgiving. Yulin's age resume has to be improved. Yulin had no awareness of being the culprit at all. Under Volley's kind eyes, he added a cup of screw oil and sighed, what a pity. I learned from Volley that in about 356 hours, a supervisor from the superior department will come to inspect the progress of the work. Yulin took note of this matter and would hang out with Volley for a few days before talking about it. While chatting with Wally, Wally's charging ended and the power indicator light exposed on his side was full. Wally diligently pushed Yilin to insert friend 10 into the charging pile. Of course, Yilin seriously refused this excessive request. At this moment, Yilin has no body and is a pure blood incarnation. He didn't have a digestive system, so the engine oil he drank came out from under his body before he could digest it. When Yilin stood up, Wally regretfully came to where Yilin was sitting. After analyzing it, he sighed, "You leaked oil. Time is like a girl's tenderness, it disappears after being rubbed." In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. Under the unknowing cover of Wally, Yilin secretly infected hundreds of omnics. He successfully blended into them and got involved with the machines responsible for this waste disposal area. They didn't realize that there was a traitor among them. Of course, with Yilin's status, infecting this group of omnics would be suspected of bullying them, but in this situation, Yilin didn't care so much anymore, and bullied them first. Yilin has some experience in how to subtly turn enemies into friends. The motor oil processed by Yilin became a bestseller in the small circle. Many intelligent machines became brothers with Yilin. Later, Yilin realized the business opportunity. Every cup of low-quality motor oil, after being processed by soul cooking technique, would be sold 10 screws a cup. 10 screws are equivalent to Wally's wages for working 28 hours a day. In just 3 days, Yilin made a lot of money. He took a basket of screws to the logistics department in charge of this area to exchange for a box of high-end parts. The logistics department is also a frequent visitor to Yilin. After Yilin paid for a free cup of soul engine oil, the supervisor, who looked like an inverted mechanical bear, kindly gave Yilin a 30% discount. Wally is classified as multifunctional tool type 1 in the intelligent machine industry. It is an old model from ancient times. It is a miracle of the mechanical age that it can still move. Although Wally is an old model, its robotic arm can transform into practical work tools such as welders, screwdrivers, wrenches, drills, and cutting knives. Yilin spent a few days and borrowed Wally's old model tools to knock out a suit of armor that looked decent. The style was a bit like the Unit 3 designed by Mali, as agile as a cheetah. The appearance is more powerful, and the gold and red color scheme makes Yilin look particularly powerful and majestic after wearing it. Well, as expected of me. Yilin wiped the oil and dirt from her smooth face and looked at Unit number 3 standing on the work shelf, feeling very satisfied. In a trance, he seemed to have returned to the time when he was studying in the Great Engineer Tower, and he seemed to have returned to the Tianjian section. He was Lin Yi, an outstanding young man who concentrated on guarding in front of the weapon refining furnace. In short, he has not neglected the handicraft aspect. It is like the skills imprinted in the soul, and the techniques are returned to nature. On the inside of the external armor of Unit No. 3, Yilin added an old processing chip. Of course, Yilin does not rely on the calculation of the old chip to process logic. He is purely used as a carrier to disguise the ID. Through the back door and infection, Yilin confuses the director of the waste disposal station, a beautiful humanoid omnic Alice-2033, nicknamed Alice-2033, who is also Wally's dream lover. 1. Then, Yilin registered the legal number, L-1010. The Alice-type humanoid omnic is the most popular female model in the Nemesis universe. Not only does she have a streamlined figure, but her core is the latest 10th generation biomass conversion power furnace. She has lightweight titanium alloy skin and a round and plump chest plate that integrates flame jets, live ammunition, and grenades. Energy beam jets, high voltage current guns and other weapons on the back, and can even extend gliding wings. Combined with the jet system, the Alice model can glide in the air at high speed. Simply put, the Alice model is cool and powerful. As far as Wally knows, there are nearly 1 million mass-produced models of Alice in District 11 alone, and there are countless special models among them. Wally is salivating and wishes he could play with one of them. They are privately engaged for life, and spend every day and night applying engine oil and doing internal repairs to each other. After getting acquainted with the Omnics, Yulin discovered that Nemesis was indeed a talent. While the Omnic race he created possesses intelligence, their words and deeds are similar to human society. In the cognition of Omnics, there is a strict chain of contempt, promotion system, rigid needs, and extravagant demands. Take the contempt chain as an example. The old model Wally, which used to be responsible for stamping, is at the bottom of the contempt chain. And Yulin, who had put on a new armored vest, suddenly transformed into the most handsome boy in the small circle of the waste recycling station. As he walked on the road, he attracted the attention of many companions, and even some intellectuals with unrestrained personalities. The machine leaked fresh engine oil due to Yulin's passing. In short, Yulin successfully penetrated into the enemy's interior. Unless Nemesis was so idle that he came here in person, no one would be able to discover this sneaky trick. And Yulin also knew that the waste disposal station located on the eastern edge of Area 11 was just an insignificant corner of the Nemesis universe, and it didn't even bother to set its sights here. After struggling for a while, Yulin felt relieved and could act boldly. Wally was not doing well, so Yulin took some time out to help her good friend Wally in the Omnic Circle to change into a new armor plate. He chose grass green for the spray paint, which made the green Wally's entire machine look particularly energetic. Be energetic. These days. Yulin is honest. Nothing happened. He followed Wally and worked in the waste disposal station, and by the way infected all the Omnics in his small circle, turning them into friendly companions. In fact, Yulin did not dare to modify their core cognition, which was the only principle set by Nemesis. The formulation of this core principle means that all rules of action are in the interest of the life of the machine race continues and serves, but above this sole principle, there is a supreme principle, that is, God is the master of all Omnics. Look, Nemesis really has the dream and ambition to be promoted to the master sequence. Even if the sole principle and supreme principle cannot be modified, it is not a big problem if Yulin analyzes some of the Omnic powers and secretly adds some additional clauses. In order to replace the rule of Nemesis, Yulin felt that the time had not come yet, and his understanding of the Omnic community was still not deep enough. He needed more information before he could make the next decision. After quietly assimilating into the small circle of Omnics at the District 11 waste disposal station, Yulin spent her peaceful days dawdling on the day when the Superior Department Supervisor would inspect, as Wally had said before. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1183. You can never see the color of the sky here, only endless haze and light pollution. The air is always filled with the pungent smell of engine oil, or the strange smell that comes from the decay of biological waste. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Someday, the disc-shaped spacecraft, about 10 kilometers in diameter, tore through the haze and arrived here. The disc spaceship flew unprecedentedly over the District 11 waste treatment station. Like a foreign object, it roughly squeezed away the thick and granular haze deposited in the sky. The white, green, and red light beams were refracted by the haze to form a magnificent colorful cloud, seems to be conveying some kind of signal. Traditionally, the image of UFO in fantasy books may be similar to the giant thing in the sky. Base. A beam of dazzling light, condensed but not scattered, fell from the center of the disk. In the beam, a beautiful Alice-shaped figure tapped her feet and slowly floated down. Before the supervisor arrived, the supervisor of the waste disposal station, Alice-2033, the name is too difficult to pronounce, so let's call it Sanur. Sanur notified all the working models of the waste disposal station through broadcasts and private messages on the intranet in advance. Including Yulin. Yulin and Sanur got along quite well, and Sanur reminded her specifically that her sister had a bad temper, so she should not conflict with the leader in her words and behavior. At first, Yilin thought that Sanur and the supervisor who was about to arrive were related, but soon after the two machines were rubbing each other's engine oil intimately, Sanur revealed the reason why they called each other sisters. It turns out that the two machines are sisters. In the setting of a model, it is the relationship between brothers and sisters. Yilin thought about it and realized there was nothing wrong with this. Products produced in the same factory and with the same batch number are indeed blood related. In the waste disposal station, including Yilin, there are a total of 124 intelligent machines, divided into two neat rows in the air and underground, waiting in silence. Catchy, catchy, catchy. The charming sound effect of the high-heeled feet equipped with advanced shock-absorbing modules on the metal ruins made many country bumpkins swallow the lubricant. When the light beam dissipated, a red and gold Alice walked towards the side with an elegant step. Yilin mingled with the team and observed. The outer armor of the new Alice type is polished spotlessly, there is no dirt in the gaps, and the key parts of the armor are bright and shiny. It is obvious that it has been properly maintained. On her back, at the position of the two shoulder armors, there is a slightly raised linear arc, which seems to be a special model with specialized flight capabilities and strengthened wings. On the pale golden, simple designed visor, below the long and narrow eye slit on the left side, there is a black triangle painted, and next to the painted there is a number, 101. Yilin said I was stupid. Incredible, not only the colors are different, but the numbers are also different. How could it be such a coincidence? It shouldn't be. It is impossible for the entropy beast blood body to bring low charm and low luck. Or is it because Nemesis's small universe consciousness is secretly causing some discomfort to his intruder? It doesn't make sense. Yilin murmured in her heart. The official number of the supervisor who came to inspect the work is Alice-101. Her number has the symbol of the Special Forces, which is different from the mass-produced Sanur. The communication between the Omnics was not as troublesome as Yilin imagined. 101 and Sanur were standing face to face. They opened the lids on their chests, and at the same time stretched out a hose with a connector and inserted it into each other. After a brief private communication, the two Alice-type machines exchanged their own data and logs. The expected trouble did not appear. 101 walked through the queue and seemed to take a second look at Yilin's color scheme. Then he looked away, turned around and pulled Sanur away. It is said that 101 will spend the night in Sanur's room tonight. It is worth mentioning that the 10th generation biomass conversion power furnace mounted on the Alice type theoretically does not use electrical energy. They can directly convert biomass into high-efficiency energy just like humans eat food. However, high-end models are often backward compatible. In other words, it can also be plugged in and charged. It depends on each Omnic's preferences. Some like it, some don't. After 101 left, Yilin breathed a sigh of relief, but then he began to focus on 101 again. Yilin invaded this world, and after gradually understanding it, his next plan became increasingly clear. The most ideal result is, of course, to instigate rebellion, no, to persuade Nemesis to abandon the dark side and turn to the bright side. But judging from the current situation, it seems that the possibility is extremely low and almost impossible to achieve. As for the next best thing, Yilin plans to disintegrate this small universe from the inside, and even directly find Nemesis's body and destroy it directly. This was also the most likely way to kill Nemesis when Green and Yilin discussed it without the Lord of Nightmares intervening. Now, Yilin has been staying at the waste disposal station in Area 11 for more than 10 days. In this small corner, there is no other hope. It is time to move to the upper level of the Omnic race. In Yilin's view, since he has sneaked in, he must do it thoroughly. How can he not become the boss of the Omnic clan? At worst, you have to become a senior executive. At night, after the warning whistle whistled, Yilin quietly slipped out of Vali's room while Vali was plugged into the charging station to stand by. In fact, Yilin has already secretly controlled this place. If he gets unlucky out of habit and encounters the night patrol, they are all cooked. 1 cup of soul oil drink can solve the problem. If 1 cup doesn't work, then 2 cups. Yilin is very confident in her cooking skills. Who in the world can resist the charm of delicious food? However, it is most ideal to act secretly without any chance of noticing. Yilin had already memorized all the patrol routes, and after easily avoiding them, Yilin came to Sanos' waiting residence. Facing the Omnic race, Yilin felt that there was a problem. Their inner network is everywhere, as Yilin discovered when he infected other Omnics. Every time an Omnic was infected, Yilin had to be careful, moving gently to avoid Nemesis noticing it as much as possible. And there is no way to observe words and emotions. This gave Yilin a headache. Yilin is still unable to sense their thoughts or modify their computing logic from the level of radio wave information, and needs further efforts. Several hundred meters away from Sanos' waiting area, Yilin felt that it was almost done. Released with transparent perception, Yilin took in the layout and situation of the room into her soul. Huh? Are you really pranking me? Yilin was a little surprised. In principle, the 101 model does not need to be plugged in, but maybe she wanted to experience the feeling of being plugged in. I saw Saner and 101 sitting at attention on the charging pile, with the indicator lights in their eyes dim. Yilin knew that they were in standby state, which in layman's terms was sleep mode. It's okay to be a little adventurous. Yilin squatted in the dark, thought for a moment, then spread his palms, and crystal blood squeezed out from the gaps in the armor. Bundles of thick blood-colored light silently gathered in Yilin's palms like dripping asphalt, and finally condensed. It became a round and flawless blood ball. The ball floated towards Sanos' waiting area. The doorway is open with a sensor alarm above. But Yilin already understood clearly that the sensor alarm only reacts to organic matter and metal. Yilin's blood crystal passes by, which is equivalent to being invisible. The operation of breaking into Sanos' boudoir went smoothly, and the ball floated on 101's chest. For the Alice model, the maintenance panel is located in the center of the 2 chest plates, with a docking port. Of course, there are more than just these interfaces for high-end Omnics, they are all on the fingers, and even on the back. But the docking port on the chest transmits data at the fastest speed, which means Yilin can save more time if she does it. What's more important is that Yilin once secretly dismantled Saner and knew the structure behind the Alice type. Under Yilin's control, the blood crystal ball branched out into tentacles. Dozens of tentacles turned into different types of screwdrivers and crowbars, and Yilin started working. First, unscrew the outer chest armor plate fixing screws. The movements were gentle and perfect. No matter how smart the Omnic is, it is impossible to install sensors on the outer armor plate. It's hard to say, on the inside. On the inside of the hard outer armor plate is an inner plate of flexible energy-absorbing material, which is fixed with a total of 16 screws. Changing a tentacle, Yilin continued to dismantle it. The inner layer is a layer of waterproof mesh. Dismantle. After being removed layer by layer, the chest plate of 101 is flattened, exposing the internal structure. Ignoring the weapons structures loaded in the 2 weapons bays, Yilin drove straight in, went straight to the point, and lifted off the protective layer of the protection panel. At this time, 101 moved. Hiss. Could there be a hidden sensor here? Not so. What's the use of coming? Outside the house, Yilin was puzzled and stopped moving. This is why Yilin specifically chose to take action when 101 and Saner were in the same room. If she was really discovered, Yilin could blame Saner and let her take the blame. 2 beautiful female Omnics cherished each other, and one of the 3 couldn't help but take off the armor and add some high-quality engine oil to it. Isn't it a normal and reasonable thing? Time seemed to stand still. In the room, only the indicator light of the charging station flickered on and off. After a while, Yilin saw that 101 had no weird reaction after the chest plate was removed, so she felt relieved and continued working. Plug into the docking port. Outside the house, the throne in Yilin pivot rotated and the light shone brightly. At the base, the ferocious steel cable surged 100 times and penetrated deep into the bottom of the lake. And the outside world. The surface of the crystallized blood cells was quietly covered with a layer of bright silver. Like a skilled hacker, Yilin began to read 101's log data and tampered with the action logic from the edge of the data. Even if it is a special model, it still has the same sole principle and supreme principle as the mass-produced model. As the god of omnic authority, Nemesis cannot leave obvious loopholes for his subordinates. Yilin is not so naive as to think that this little trick alone can subvert Nemesis's Iron Legion and the small universe. It's not a big problem to add a little innocuous operating logic slightly, without leaving a trace, and to moisturize things silently. For example, being familiar with tall and handsome omnics with the same color scheme. Being curious about the obsolete L-type machine. Keywords: intimacy, curiosity. Friendly unit, L-type. Yilin is not a programmer. The logic he wrote is in the form of authority, which will be more vivid and straightforward. Yilin can't play complex code writing. But in fact, his actions were more advanced. As intelligent beings, Yilin feels that they possess intelligence and should be able to understand what kindness and curiosity are. In their field of vision, for a certain target, different colors and icons represent different target types. For example, green represents friendly forces, red represents enemy forces, yellow represents alert targets, blue represents superior omni-machine, question marks represent unknown models, and so on. Friendliness and curiosity are roughly classified into the green category in terms of target color classification. As for the specific performance, it depends on the situation. Yilin can't tell what changes will happen for a while. But doing so will not make Yilin's green level higher than Nemesis. That is impossible. No matter it, we'll talk about it later. Beep beep beep. Boo hoo hoo. Clang clank. After a while of tinkering, Yilin returned the inner net, waterproof layer, and outer armor plate of 101 to their original positions. Next, wait for tomorrow. Yilin returned to Wally's residence. Wally was still charging. The charging efficiency of the old model was slow. Yilin's tampering went very smoothly. Alice-101 doesn't feel it. Even the final result made Yilin feel that it was a little too smooth. Early the next morning. Routine Q. Two Alice-type omnics walked out of the small room. When 101, the supervisor from the higher-level department, just passed by Yilin, he looked at the body as strong as a cheetah, the well-maintained armor plates, and the meticulously tightened screws. He immediately stood not far from Yilin. Stood up straight, unable to move. Boom, 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 boom. The coolant in Alice's body was running water-cooled, and thick steam spurted out from her shoulders. The deafening sound seemed like the roar of the turbocharger and the roar of the engine. 101 walked gracefully and came to Yilin step by step, his eyes lit up with pink heart indicator lights. Come with me. Yilin was suddenly stunned. He recalled repeatedly that he had only added an ordinary friendliness to 101's operation logic last night, and there were no other weird command lines. But looking at 101's expression, it seems a little overwhelmed. I think there may be a bit of misunderstanding between us. Yilin began to feel that she had underestimated the operating logic of omnics. No misunderstanding. Alice-101, the iron arm grabbed Yilin's strong metal arm, deformed with a click, locked it, and combined the two hands. She turned to her good sister Sanur and made a request. We are now requesting the transfer of ownership of L-1010. The request has been sent. Please approve it immediately. Beep beep beep. Alice-2033 remained motionless. The orders from her superiors were absolute and she had no authority to refuse. After a moment of silence, Sanur felt that her beloved chef had been robbed, and her emotional simulation center simulated the sad emotion for the first time. The ownership transfer is completed. Currently L-1010 belongs to Alice-101. Except for the formal establishment. Call out. 101 grabbed Yurin and lifted into the air. The armor deformed. This special model of Alice was indeed specialized in flying. In the blink of an eye, she transformed into Yurin's tail, as if it was a perfect fit. Behind Yulin, he flew towards the disc hovering in the sky like a shooting star. From beginning to end, Yulin had no chance to express any other opinions except I think there is a misunderstanding between us. 101 directly and brutally kidnapped Yulin and boarded the returning spaceship. 10 minutes later. On the disc spaceship. Sitting on the alloy chair, Yulin remained motionless, seeming to accept the upcoming tragic fate. The imagined scene of a disc spaceship full of elite soldiers did not appear. On the disc, passages crisscrossed, and every room was very spacious. The room Yulin is currently in is a bit strange. It is equipped with some weird equipment that looks like an operating bed, a shadowless lamp, a robotic arm, a Trojan horse and a rivet board. Know what to use it for. But it is reasonable to infer that this seems to be a place where omnics use to improve self-cultivation. For example, the flat bed 2 meters away from Yulin at 3 o'clock. There is a workbench above. If Alice lies down on it, her hands and feet will be instantly clasped in a large format position. Immediately afterwards, Alice can extend the docking port and connect it to the workbench to perform self-adjustment, maintenance, and repair. If that bed is a place for self-maintenance, then the place where Yulin is sitting now should be a place for being maintained. Yulin watched calmly as his hands were clasped by curved shackles as thick as water pipes. In fact, these devices could not trap him. He was just curious about what Alice 101 wanted to do by forcefully abducting him here, driven by intimacy. Alice-101 buckled him on the stool and left the room. Yulin took this opportunity to use transparent perception to check the spacecraft. The spacecraft was already in the air at this moment, sailing at high speed in a certain direction. Again, with Yulin's current ability, even if the body is not here, it will be a dimension-reducing blow to any omnic life. In today's vast universe, there is only one existence that Yulin fears, Nemesis. After a brief inspection, Yulin was surprised to find that the interior of the space fleet under Nemesis's jurisdiction was not as simple as he initially imagined. There is only one reason why he thinks so. There are actually human beings on the disk. Humanity. Why are there purebred humans on the spaceship? According to Yulin's perception, there were 18 humans wearing bulky protective suits on the disk spacecraft, busy walking through different passages. Alice-101 patrolled the common people like a proud queen. When she passed in front of the human staff, the humans knelt down and called sir respectfully and carefully. Slave. Yulin's heart skipped a beat. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yishueshi. Chapter 1184. Yulin was wondering in her heart, thinking about whether these slave humans existing in the Nemesis universe could be used. Alice-101 took nervous steps towards the person who was handcuffing Yulin. The room squirted. Puchi, Puchi, Puchi. In the zero-gravity channel, Alice spurted forward with the help of propulsion. Tisk. Heavy metal doors opened to both sides. The elegant 101 sat in front of Yulin. According to the data, the L-type is an ancient model that was eliminated 50 years ago. Moreover, the L-type is not elegantly painted and configured like you. Alice is worthy of being a highly intelligent being, and her words are coherent and coherent. Clear. Alice -101 calls the paint color similar to her own elegance. It seems that the anthropomorphic module of 101 has an element of pride mixed in. Pride. This is easy to handle. Humph, Yulin thought for a while and decided to go along with it. She pretended to be more arrogant than Alice and looked up at the ceiling with her chin tilted. I like it. Alice lifted Yulin's chin with her index finger. This move could not be said to be provocative, because a serious human would definitely be broken into a comminuted fracture of the cervical vertebrae by this provocation and click. Alice said, Alice -101, order you to tell your reasons. Beep beep beep. Yulin's processing chip loaded the fake ID and received information from her superiors. This is a mandatory order. Logically speaking, Yulin could not refuse. In the Omnic community, authority trumps all else. Once Yulin refuses, the trap will definitely be exposed. How to explain this? Yulin has a headache. The L-type is indeed an ancient model that has long been eliminated in the records of many machinery factories. Yulin used this model at the time because he thought it was pleasing to the eye, simple and suitable for him. Unexpectedly, under the operating logic of intimacy, Alice paid so much attention to him and was obsessed with the model. There are two paths before Yulin. The first is to forcibly invade Alice's center and completely rewrite all of Alice's data from the underlying data. But in this way, it is equivalent to erasing the original simulated personality of the Omnic Alice -101. Of course, this is not a question of whether it is good or not, or whether it is cruel or not, but in this way, it will affect nirvana. Yulin, who is not fully understood by the small universe of messes, can easily touch Nemesis's bottom line and expose his existence in advance. Then there is only the second method. Click. Click. Under the gaze of Alice -101, Yulin easily broke free from the restraints and gently stroked Alice's cold cheek with both hands. Alice -101 was stunned. Free method Crimson Pulse. Laugh. A circle of ripples was released from Yulin's hands, and the electronic components of the entire spacecraft malfunctioned for a moment. All the lights dimmed for a moment, but then came back on again. In front of Yulin, the light in Alice -101's eyes went out and she fell directly into a coma state. It's really easy to deal with an Omnic. Yulin sighed while moving skillfully, and quickly dismantled the Alice -101 chest armor plate layer by layer. There was plenty of time this time, and the slaves on the disk did not have the guts to disturb the elegance of Sir Alice -101 without affecting the personality of this Omnic simulation. Yulin targeted herself and added many secret details one by one. Yulin believes that 101 seems to have some misunderstanding about intimacy. He redefines what intimacy is based on Alice -101's behavioral logic. During this process, Yulin encountered difficulties on a physical level and could only use the power of authority to roughly correct her Alice-type cognition. Yulin set her character as a poor cute newcomer who knew nothing after being formatted, while Alice became an excellent Omnic who was sympathetic to the cute newcomer and fell in love with her at first sight. Well, compassion. Yulin added a little bit of compassion to it. This time, Yulin had enough time to tinker with it, and Yulin, whose hands were so fast, almost dismantled the Alice model inside and out. The process is somewhat violent and sonorous, so I won't go into details. But in the end, Yulin actually found out Nemesis's way of controlling the Omnic army through intentional manipulation and unintentional manipulation. On the back neck of the Alice model, there is a microchip the size of a grain of rice. The chip seems to be alive, with pseudopods extending out and lying there tightly, motionless. Yulin did not touch Nemesis's authority rashly. He made a little investigation outside, and sure enough, a tiny bunch of reasons extended from the chip. It was almost undetectable and could be called micron level. It was immersed in the void. I don't know where to stretch. I see. As Yulin had learned before, the superior god is not omnipotent. Every god is more like a professional who has gone to the extreme in his partiality. Only when he has gone to the extreme in his partiality can he gather his own authority. And Nemesis's omnic is precisely because its authority is more biased towards omnic than instrument. In Yulin's eyes, this kind of simple and crude remote control is no different from plugging in an antenna, but it is exactly this way that allows Nemesis to control the universe and become entrenched here. In this world, there are omnics, Nemesis, and humans. Yulin vaguely felt as if he had found a breakthrough to defeat Nemesis. After working for 10 minutes, Alice restarted. She felt like she had taken a nap. When she restarted, Alice 101 saw the ancient Model L in front of her. It had the same color scheme as hers, but had a pitiful life experience. With her own efforts, she worked in the waste disposal station, exchanged parts, and worked hard. Going up, I finally gathered the parts of this body and transformed it into such an elegant posture. Alice 101 didn't ask any more questions. Crystal clear coolant flowed from the corners of her eyes. She touched Yulin's head and said, "L, from now on, you don't have to go back to that kind of place again." After fine-tuning, Alice's intimacy is finally normal and feels right. Yulin calls Alice sister. Alice calls Yulin brother. In fact, once you accept the setting, there is nothing wrong with being a younger brother. The destination of the disk is a mine about 30,000 kilometers away from the District 11 waste disposal station. The distance that should have been reached in the blink of an eye, because Alice deliberately ordered the slaves on the ship to drive slowly and not in a hurry, so that the disk sailed for half an hour before it was about to reach its destination. Morning Star Mine in Area 11. Area 11 is the collective name for this planet, its extraterrestrial satellites, space stations, and other areas. There are a total of 36 mines in District 11. Among them, the Morning Star Mine is the largest of the 36 mines in District 11. Alice 101 is the person in charge of Morning Star Mine. When Yulin learned about this, she realized that it was the right thing to sneak up on her sister. Everything seemed to be destined and Nemesis was destined to be exhausted. Ah, everything is just right, this will save Yulin a lot of trouble. When the disc landed on a vast and flat apron and entered the underground for maintenance, Yulin saw it with his own eyes and sighed again. Nemesis was worthy of being a god. This suddenly refreshed Yulin's understanding of mines. The understanding of this vocabulary. Geographically speaking, the area of Morning Star Mine is similar to that of a huge country in the main world of Yulin. Not to mention, under the greenhouse-like buildings, there are 3 underground floors equal to the surface area. Because Yulin has added to herself the pitiful persona of being formatted and ignorant of the world, Sister Alice knows all the questions Yulin has raised, and even takes the initiative to add them. Yulin wears tall and handsome armor and perfectly dresses herself up as an omnic, so much so that in Sister Alice's concept, Yulin is not regarded as an outsider at all. Not to mention hostile concepts such as career work and espionage. What's more, although the information Sister Alice mentioned is very crucial to Yulin, it is a common sense concept for every omnic. After speaking non-stop for 3 minutes, Sister Alice completed the data collection and simply transferred a 96.7 file to Yulin. It not only contained non-confidential detailed information about Area 11, but also a high-definition satellite map of the entire planet. Yulin was flattered by this friendship. This was the first time he felt the emotion called concern since he dived into Nemesis's universe. But what makes Yulin feel ironic is that this kind of concern actually comes from a cold omnic. Yulin is a bit dumbfounded by this. The file was so large that it almost crashed Yilin's old chip. Text and data don't take up much space. In 96.7T, pictures and videos occupy the most space. The file contains structural drawings and concept drawings of various models including the Alice type. After a rough sweep, the texture, structure, temperature, and parameters here and there seem to be clearly marked on the document. Yilin is not a serious omnic. He can only read the folder title and cannot read the parameters and details. He wanted to say it's really big, but he swallowed the words before he said it, so as not to make too many mistakes. What if it looked big but was not as big as he thought? Brother L, who had received a huge amount of information, lowered his head and remained silent, as if he was concentrating on his studies. Sister Alice silently labeled Yilin as the good brother of District 11 in her dictionary. In Alice's eyes, Rin's outline became greener and greener, until it was shiny, which represented extreme friendliness. After recognizing alien siblings with Alice, Alice 101 didn't know what special things to do to Yilin. After all, sharing a charging station between omnics is already an extremely cordial thing. It would be more cordial than Alice could imagine, nor could she imagine it. She decided to go back and check the relevant information before making the next step. Alice flashed her lights thoughtfully. At Yilin's strong request, Alice arranged a single-family mansion outside the mine, not far from the landing pad, and there was a terminal inside that could process data. The reason Yilin gave is straightforward: his model is too old and cannot handle the large data packets Alice sent him safely and losslessly. If the tinkering goes wrong, wouldn't it be a waste of sister's kindness? What bad intentions could a good brother have? Alice agreed without thinking too much. Before leaving, Alice warned her not to enter the mine without permission. It was a capital crime for disobeying the Supreme Council and would result in complete abandonment. Supreme Council. Yilin originally wanted to ask what the Supreme Council was, but without thinking for too long, Yilin deduced that the Supreme Council Alice mentioned was probably related to Nemesis. Assuming that Nemesis monitors billions of living beings and countless omnics and uses the keyword search method, if he asks about it rashly, he will probably blow up the truck. So Yilin suppressed the thought of talking too much and first find the terminal in the room and carefully read the huge file package sent by Alice. At the moment, Yilin pretended not to notice what the Supreme Council was, and promised never to privately enter the mine. Yilin, who was glowing with 7 colors to express her warm farewell, said goodbye to Sister Alice, and turned around. Yilin's heart sank and she closed the door in the room. Sure enough, I feel like I'm being watched. As soon as Yilin stepped into the room, she noticed something was wrong. The layout of the room is very much like a mechanical maintenance room, with no beds or human utensils. There are some weapon parts, modified accessories, high-end barreled engine oil, etc. The moment the door opened, the familiar smell of engine oil wafted out of the room, making Yilin feel like she was back in Wally's room. This may be the peak life that Wally envies. Yilin always remembers her identity as a new person who was born after the old L-type was formatted and restarted, although Yilin secretly tampered with the operating logic of Alice 101, making her regard herself as a super-friendly unit. But this kind of friendliness might very well make Alice secretly covet his armor plates and do some unthinkable things. For example, peeping. Yilin performed a mechanical moon dance and circled around the room happily. The surveillance module was quickly found on the wall. It would have been too difficult not to find it, or Alice had no intention of hiding it at all. The lens, which is about 10 centimeters long and about 3 centimeters in diameter, is pointed directly at the luxury charging pile. In the lens, there is a red light that rotates 360 degrees without any blind angle, watching everything in the room. After soaking a cup of engine oil, Yilin decided that she had to be more thorough when installing the Omni machine. After suffocating the sound and deliberately releasing the gas to simulate the evaporation of the coolant several times, Yulin came to the terminal and pulled it out from behind the breastplate. Connect the interface to the terminal, drink the oil drink and read the documents leisurely. Gilialo. I got a little heady while drinking. Very tasty. Yulin drank for an hour and took the initiative to refill 4 glasses. It's just that the engine oil you drank has nowhere to go, it all leaks out and is wasted. In his opinion, the younger brother who concentrates on reading documents and organizing and summarizing will not damage his image in the intelligence of Sister Alice. He has always paid great attention to personality and what kind of personality should do what. Moreover, Yulin has a certain understanding of the omnic community. After abandoning all emotional thinking, they only rely on logical operations. To a certain extent, they are a type that is easy to understand. It's nothing more than a collision of logic, probability, and simulated personality. Emotion. Non-existent. After 1 hour, Yulin unplugged the connector from the terminal. Sister Alice included personal information in the huge document description. She seemed to want to instill a certain concept into Yulin, but it was this indoctrination that actually gave Yulin a deeper understanding of Nemesis's cosmic form. What an irony! After closing the terminal, Yulin frowned and sat down on the charging pile. Click. The charging port got stuck in the gap in the armor plate. He turned off the indicator light on his visor and pretended to be I'm charging obediently. The sense of voyeurism from the dark diminishes. But it hasn't completely disappeared. Despair. A round blood-colored bead first seeped out from the gap in the armor plate, and then turned solid in the blink of an eye. Like a pearl, it rolled to the dark corner, sneaked along the cracks in the room, and climbed out of the room into the wilderness. Superior. He did promise Sister Alice not to enter the mine without permission. But entering in a brazen manner is not considered a breach of contract. Yulin urged the round blood beads and slipped into the mine uprightly, brightly, feeling at ease. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1185. Moving at night may be a human talent, and anyone can learn it without a teacher. The mine is as large as a superpower. It is tightly guarded and can be called an iron wall. However, there are no omnics. You will notice a bead rolling along the gap. The so-called mine. It's a neat grid. In each grid, a life support capsule is stably placed. In each life support cabin, there is a human being lying quietly. After the life support cabin, the power supply, excretion pipes, and nutrition channels are all connected. Yulin was in front of the life support cabin, checking the functions of the life support cabin and having a panoramic view of it. In the life support cabin, there are all men, women, old, and young. After a week of simply checking at the edge, combined with the files transmitted to him by Alice's sister, Yulin quickly understood the operation mode of the mine. There are 2 kinds of human beings in the world. Superior people, managers. The inferior, biobatteries. Biobattery is an inferior human being created in a petri dish through cloning technology and gene-directed editing technology. The only meaning of their existence and their lives is to serve as biological batteries in the mine. When they were born in the battery factory, they were completely packaged in containers and transported here through the assembly line. In the life support cabin, they grow up, and are fed with corresponding memories and knowledge. They will be equipped with neural interfaces and connected to the virtual world that runs through the vast universe of 24 regions, phantom light. We are born as people, live, work, get married, have children, and even die. As a human, one's life is arranged and finalized in this way. They will spend their entire lives in the survival cabin, and the scenery they can see is the virtual world they can see when they open their eyes. They don't know the reality of the world, let alone the cruelty of fate, and they don't know the true meaning of their existence. For them, the virtual world phantom light is the only real world in which they can survive. Densely packed biobatteries filled the entire mine. Yulin was silent and simply counted the number of bio-batteries. Calculated based on the average floor area of each biological battery of about 4 square meters, excluding the space between the survival cabin and the survival cabin, and then removing the passages that accommodate the passage of maintenance type and combat type intelligent machines, and 3-layer structure, upper, middle and lower. In the Morningstar mine alone, if every cabin was occupied by people, it would have a population of nearly 10 billion. 10 billion people. What if we add biological batteries from other mines or even other areas? Yulin tried to understand such a huge number. The manager is different from the biological battery. The manager is what Yulin saw on the disc, the human slave responsible for serving Alice's sister. They are humble, they live in contentment, they eat moldy bread and drink synthetic nutrient solution that tastes like motor oil, but they are still alive. Compared with inferior people, this kind of life cannot be said to be better or worse, but at the very least, they know the reality of the world. They are rooted in different positions and do things that omnics cannot do by themselves, or do not bother to do. Or, the genetic source of the cloned biobattery comes from the genes of this group of native-born managers. When Yulin first arrived on this planet, he noticed something strange. If Nemesis really has achieved complete control of its universe, why are all omnics equipped with a certain degree of weapons? Assuming that there are no hostile forces in this universe, what use does the omnic community have weapons? Existence is reasonable. Since weapons exist, it means that they are useful as weapons. Is it to allow omnics to better rule the only remaining superior humans in the small universe? This answer is still open to debate. Yulin believes that this cannot be completely explained. Under the shadows, the blood beads rolled silently, turning into a thumb-high minifigure. His face looked exactly like Yulin's, holding his chin and looking solemn, pacing back and forth. Yulin was evaluating the risks of sneaking into the virtual world by using the link equipment of the survival module, and what he couldn't understand about the configuration of the Nemesis universe. He had witnessed the remains of a biological battery. In the life support cabin, the inferior people were thin, weak, and looked malnourished. Obviously, no matter how nourished they were in the virtual world of Phantom Light, in the real world, Nemesis could barely maintain their lives. Perhaps the cabin was filled with the worst nutrient solution. But this consumption, day and night, is also an unimaginably huge number. Then here comes the problem. Why does Nemesis raise so many humans? Just raise them and create a virtual world for them to survive in? Why is this? In Yulin's opinion, this matter was undoubtedly unnecessary. Yulin would not comment on how despicable Nemesis's behavior was. Yulin has long understood that the struggle between different races is always so cruel and unreasonable. In the eyes of God, and beneath him, we are all ants, letting life and death perish without any disturbance in our hearts. As for Nemesis, he happened to be blocking Yulin's path, and the two became enemies. It was such a simple hostile relationship. You die and I live, it's just a matter of life and death. Perhaps, the illusion of light virtual world is the breakthrough point for conquering Nemesis. Green is currently keeping his body, and Nemesis may be busy searching for traces of the Nightmare Knight's family members in the lower levels of the Origin Sea. Even though Nemesis may have no time to take care of the inside of his small universe, Yulin has arrived at this moment. The opponent's territory, to put it nicely, is to go deep behind enemy lines, to put it at worst, to fall into a trap. The life and death of the Nightmare Knight and his friends depend on Yulin's thoughts. One wrong move and the whole game is lost. The blood villain circled several times between the life support chambers. On the way, we passed several Omni machine patrols whose models looked like new products. They patrolled the route and followed the principle of no blind spots. Yulin observed it for about an hour, but failed to find a safe blind spot, so she had to give up. Yulin originally wanted to turn enemies into friends with them. I originally wanted to turn my heart to the bright moon, but the bright moon illuminated the ditch. In short, Yulin didn't find a chance to infect them safely. This is the difference between humans and omnics. Humans make mistakes, but machines don't. Unless Yulin insists. Returning to his residence openly and bloodily, Yulin pretended that he had just been fully charged and pulled it out of the connector with a grin, and then waited in place, pretending to be a good little brother. These days, although Yulin is on the bright side, she has not made much progress. However, after gaining a deeper understanding of the structure of the Alice type, Yulin felt that she had a deeper understanding of the authority of the omnic machine, so she took advantage of being peeped to enter the hub and continued to perfect and fuse some of the omnic machines. The throne of omnic authority. Infinite means no end, no destination. This will be a long process. Of course, Yulin is not in a hurry, as long as he can bring down Nemesis within the rules. With the protection of Green's wings, he has gradually full time. Smog and light pollution in the sky confuse night and day. 10 hours later. Catchy, catchy, catchy. Yulin walked off the shelf, and the footsteps of Alice's shock-absorbing module full of high-end taste could be heard outside the door. There are currently 2 breakthroughs. 1. Superior human being. 2. Virtual world, phantom light. Tisk. The door opened. Sister Alice walked into the room carrying a covered basin of food. No. There are 3 breakthroughs. Yulin silently corrected his thoughts 3 seconds ago in his mind. The 3rd breakthrough is Alice-101. Morning, sister. Yulin simulated a mechanical pronunciation and said hello to her sister. Come on, brother, let's do daily maintenance together. I don't know if I have stayed here for a long time. Yulin thought Alice's bare armor plates were very pretty. The sister walked up to her brother. Open the shiny alloy semicircle cover, and inside are clean water, a small high-pressure spray gun, a white towel, and of course engine oil and lubricating fluid. Click. When Yulin saw the lubricant, she took a big step back cautiously. Something is wrong with you. Wait. How about I do it myself? Yulin asked tentatively. Brother, you don't need to see anyone outside. They say that taking care of each other in a private space is the best way to cultivate intimacy. Alice spoke meticulously and in a steady tone, but she didn't seem to notice that her 2 eyes lit up with a peach color. If Alice really wants to take care of her, then her secret will be exposed. After all, Yulin is not a real omnic. Under his armor, there is a blood incarnation. Huh? Dear sister, your faceplate seems to be stained with dirt. Let me wipe it for you. Yulin suddenly pointed at Alice's red face. Yeah. Alice's faceplate turned red and steam came out. It seems that in this way, the heating element under the visor is activated, simulating the shy behavior of humans. Yulin touched it. Face. The tiny tentacles flexibly penetrated into Alice's sister's gap where the 2 touched. A small pulse was released, and Alice crashed again. Yulin had no choice but to once again fine-tune the definition of intimacy in Alice's concept. He checked for a while, and sure enough, Alice didn't know what data she had downloaded, and she gave Yulin a weird definition of kindness. For example, my titanium alloy fingers covered with battle scars gently opened your cover and stroked your lining. With the help of lubricant, our joints connected you to me, I connected to you, and you tighten my screws, and I'll apply your oil. We are like human beings, feeling each other's pain and structure in this advanced way, and so on. Never expected that. In the omnic community, there are actually masters who write pain literature. It hurts so much. Sister Alice, what information are you browsing? Yulin felt that since she had started, she had the obligation to bring things right for her sister, no, to put things right. After simple modification, Yulin fine-tuned the concept of mutual to unilateral. In other words, Alice's acceptance of Yilin's care is a sign of friendship, and Yilin's initiative to take care of Alice is also a sign of friendliness. Although this doesn't make sense emotionally and logically, it seems to work normally, so that's fine. It doesn't matter if it goes smoothly or not, as long as it works. In this way, Yilin no longer has to take the risk of Alice and Nemesis noticing something strange and openly dismantle Alice's armor plates. If you often walk by the stream, how can you not get wet? Alice stood with her back to Yilin, her hands spread flat. Yilin took apart the surface armor for Sister Alice, soaked the towel with water, and wiped away the non-existent dirt. When it was almost done, Alice noticed something was wrong. "Brother, why are you so skilled? I specifically downloaded the maintenance manual for the Alice model from the terminal, and tried to dismantle the mass-produced model Alice in the simulation module." Sister Alice exclaimed, "Brother, you are working really hard." But she changed her words, and a faint sound of electricity sounded, reminding, "In the future, you are not allowed to dismantle other Alice types." Why? No reason, I don't like it. Although Sister Alice didn't know why, she still tried hard to express her preference. Yilin twisted the towel with one hand and started counting with her fingers with the other hand. "Can the Quentina type, Marin type and Angelina type be removed?" He carefully tested his sister's bottom line, tugging and tugging. Woo woo woo. Smoke spewed from Alice's vent. She fell silent. "Don't know how to answer." After a while, she calculated the answer, shook her head and said, "No, you are Alice-101's good brother, and you can only express your kindness to your sister." Yilin thought for a while. "I wanted to continue to tamper with and add fuel to the fire. But this kind of behavior is like the butterfly effect. It may become more outrageous as it changes, and finally get out of hand. Simply put, Alice will be spoiled." As for what Sister Alice said, he went to dismantle other types of Omnics. If Sister Alice didn't know, wouldn't that be a problem? Thinking of this, Yilin gave up her plan to continue to revise the term explanation of the word intimacy. Clean, lubricate, rinse, drain, steam, wipe, and oil. After a set of maintenance procedures, Yilin went through them carefully, inside and out, step by step. Sister Alice is very satisfied with the service attitude. The armor shines brightly, and the appearance soars. The reason why Yilin took so long was not because of poor craftsmanship or insufficient proficiency, but because during this process, Yilin kept getting information about Sister Alice. These sets of information were interspersed with some daily conversations, which made Sister Alice very satisfied. Except for questions that obviously violated the red line, she answered everything she knew. Only then did Yilin learn that Alice-101, as the person in charge of the Morning Star mine, in addition to maintaining the operation of the mine outside, also had a special interface to enter the virtual world Phantom Light. This is also part of the work of Alice-101. However, Yilin did not dare to ask about the specific details of the content. He felt that this should be a high-voltage line or a keyword search. Once asked, it would most likely make Alice-101 more vigilant. "Sister, Diddy, besides the model and code, don't we have a name?" Name. At this moment, Yilin has assembled Alice's armor plate. She is moving her limbs and feeling the difference before and after maintenance. After hearing this, Alice-101 asked, "Only humans have names, and we, only noble models." In her opinion, human names are more like the names of lower creatures. Higher creatures can distinguish each other with a series of signals, and there is no need to use such low-level work as naming. Yet, Yilin thought about it and didn't force it. After Alice completed the daily maintenance in Yilin's room, she twisted her waist and left with standard steps with satisfaction. Before she left, she did not forget to warn, "Don't enter the mine." "Okay, I'm obedient." "Good." The elder sister touched her younger brother's iron head to show her approval. When my sister left, she said that she had to work next and it would take 12 hours and 36 minutes. Such accurate time reporting probably means Yilin's private time. Yilin wrote it down. Another advantage of omnics is that they don't bother to lie. In other words, there is no behavioral logic of lie in the dictionary of the omnic community. 1 is 1, 2 is 2. In fact, if Yilin hadn't entered the universe as an enemy now, he might have become good friends with this lovely race. Pity. Looking at Alice's leaving figure, Yilin remained motionless. An hour later, Yilin followed the same method, separated a small blood droplet, turned into little Yilin, and sneaked into the Morning Star mine again. This time, Yilin plans to sneak into the world of phantom light and witness with her own eyes the virtual world created by Nemesis, the god of omnics. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Xueshi. Chapter 1186. There are advantages to not being a human being. In a biological sense, not only is Yilin not a human being, he is not even a living creature. He just uses the blood incarnation of the entropy beast as a container to carry his core data, that is, his soul. In this state, the only thing Yilin can rely on is the authority brought along with the core data. But without the support of UN, it would be difficult for Yilin to achieve the feat of knocking a ship-destroying weapon to pieces with a single punch. Of course, there are benefits. Yilin is not afraid of death. His body is in safe hands with Green. I just hope Green doesn't mess with his body. Get out of the wilderness and avoid the patrol routes of omnics. As far as Yilin can see, today's haze has dispersed slightly compared to yesterday. In the sky, circles of brilliantly colored star rings can be vaguely distinguished, in outer space. It is built in the shape of a cannon barrel. Yilin's blood clone is not a new skill, it is just an insignificant characteristic that was born after he gained a deeper understanding of his own bloodline during his long interstellar drift. In fact, in the past, Yilin did not deeply realize the superiority of this bloodline during the process of transforming into the entropy beast human race. But during 50 years of interstellar drifting, Yilin at least understood one thing: the survivability of entropy beasts is truly top-notch. It is worthy of being one of the 3 types of existence that can directly survive in the origin sea in the physical body. Yilin, on the other hand, is the 4th category. Not much gossip. Rolling and rolling, Yilin came to one of the passages in the mine. On both sides of the passage are rows of life support cabins. If the rows of life support capsules are compared to houses in a city, with people living inside, the channels Yilin walks through are like roads, extending horizontally and vertically in all directions, extending to the end of the horizon. But during the 12 hours that Alice was working, it was impossible for Yilin to visit the entire mine with Gun. But to accomplish Yilin's purpose tonight, you don't need to go very far. Furthermore, Yilin's blood clone carries his soul data, so he cannot be too far away from his original body. He easily and openly got into one of the life support chambers. His blood cells were soaked in poor quality nutrient solution, and he began to analyze the structure and operation mode of the life support chamber. At this moment, the bio-battery soaked in the life-sustaining cabin looks like a thin, dry man. Breathing is done through a tube directly inserted into the bronchial ventilation. In the cabin, Yilin can only hear the steady heartbeat of a human being. The man closed his eyes tightly, as quiet as a corpse soaked in formalin. Free method deconstruction. Unlimited authority doesn't sound special, but the advantage is that you can do whatever you want. The parsing process is boring. Yilin carefully separated out the tentacles one by one, and the flexible tentacles surged in the cabin like alien creatures. After a while, Yilin understood the principle of linking the virtual world between the survival capsule and the biological battery. Nothing more, just neural links. His main world also has similar technology, but it is far from as high-end as what Nemesis tinkered with. From a purely technological point of view, Yulin was not worried. Yulin's only worry was that Nemesis had mixed personal items in the life support capsule. Yulin inspected it carefully for several minutes. Phew, fortunately not, or maybe Nemesis has been at ease for a long time and has taken over the power of Omnix, thinking that no one can compete with him in this field. Tisk, you look down on humans too much, even though I am not a human either. Yulin laughed at himself. Inside the hub, at the base of the throne, a whirlpool appeared on the calm lake surface. Metal roots penetrated deep into the bottom of the lake, connecting his soul to the world. Tentacles were also separated from the blood cells, and the blood-red tentacles were gradually covered with a light metallic color. A dim and hidden stream of light lit up slightly in the life-sustaining cabin. All Yulin's actions were based on the premise of secretness and her movements were gentle. The moment the link between the biological battery and the life support cabin was disconnected, a red warning light lit up in the cabin. Within the warning range, there was a small bird-shaped intelligent machine flying towards this direction, but the green light soon turned on again. The bird Omnic flew away. He chirped, seeming to complain. Over the years, the impact of that slap from the Nightmare Lord Green has not completely faded away. Biobattery failure has become an occasional event. Omnic machines have certain intelligence and have their own logic and corresponding flexibility in dealing with problems. As long as the green light is on and it can operate, there is no need to worry about it. If it can be lit, it means it is not dead. In a split second, Yulin first disconnected the battery's physical link and then replaced it with her own information. Hurry up. Yulin followed the network cable and fought her way in. Connect to the world of illusion. In an instant, Yulin's vision went dark and then bright, and when he opened his eyes again. Rumble. Rumble. In the narrow carriage, the scenery outside the window flew backwards at high speed. The indicator lights on both sides of the passageway outside the car flickered on and off as the car moved forward and were blocked by the car window, like a strobe light, which made people dizzy. Uncle? Uncle? A teenager who looked to be 16 or 17 years old, wearing a navy blue uniform, stretched out his hand and waved it in front of Yulin's eyes. Are you calling me? Yulin reacted and pointed at herself. Uncle, could you please move your foot away? You stepped on my foot. Seeing Yulin's aggressive eyes staring directly at him, the teenager lowered his head and blushed, with the shyness of a green teenager showing on his clean face. Yulin moved her feet and the boy walked away. After taking a quick look at her surroundings, Yulin understood that she was in the subway and had no place to sit, so she could only stand. The crowded subway exudes all kinds of strange smells. There is the smell of bad perfume, sweat, the pungent smell of a new leather bag, the aroma of hot dogs. Yulin's ears were also filled with various sounds. The clear ringing sound when a text message is received on the mobile phone, private whispers, chuckles from different corners, unbridled conversations, the vibrating sound of the silent mobile phone in the pocket, and the heavy and scattered breathing of dozens of people crowded in the same carriage. A girl screamed and cursed when she was touched by a dirty hand. Popularity. The moment she regained her vision, Yulin felt the long-lost popularity. He felt like he was human again, alive. Different sounds, fast flashing lights and shadows, mixed smells, the vibration of the carriage on the track, and the soft touch of the strangers around you through their clothes. This sudden surge of senses made Yulin feel briefly dazed for a moment. If Yulin hadn't confirmed the way he entered, he wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between virtual and real for a while. Here is the virtual world, phantom light. Yulin lowered his head and recalled the brief conversation he had just had with the boy from the academy. The language he used with himself was not the language that Yulin was familiar with, but the survival capsule seemed to have corresponding common sense stored in it, or perhaps Yulin was forcing it. When replacing the biobattery, the cache in the life support module was not cleared. In short, after quickly processing the messy memories, Yulin understood the language here and learned her identity information. Rod, male, 36 years old, an ordinary office worker in a small business. Life is boring and monotonous. My wife, Shizuka, is ordinary in appearance, virtuous at home, and unemployed. After 5 years of marriage, nothing has been gained. Rod doesn't have many hobbies on weekdays. He drinks a little, but his drinking capacity is not good. He likes to play games, but he is weak and has never been able to draw an SSR. 2 days ago, his salary was reduced due to a company transfer and I had a quarrel with my wife. I will secretly go to the general healthcare clinic without telling my wife every now and then, but the frequency is not high, mainly because I don't dare. I don't have many friends. My wife deleted all my female friends in my mobile phone messages, leaving only work relationships. I would complain to my best friends when we were drunk, I wish I could have another wife. Rod secretly changed the name of his married first love to Dog Manager without telling his wife. Simple memories, like straightforward information, were roughly integrated into Yulin's memory. As an apostle, Yulin has countless time travel experiences. Within 10 seconds, Yulin integrated into her own identity. He understands his character. After exiting the station at the appropriate station, Yulin came to the company and greeted the front desk of the company as usual. The receptionist's name was Xiaomei. Not long after graduating from college, Rhodes didn't dare to strike up a conversation. He once thought in his mind that Xiaomei was having an affair with the boss. Reality. Yulin sighed secretly. The work content is very simple, which is to collect business and process documents and reports. The boss was a middle-aged, bald, fat man with a big belly. The glass in his office was one way. One time, Rhodes accidentally discovered that the boss was blatantly looking at the female staff's flesh in the one-way glass. So true. Just before noon, the boss dropped a document and said if it couldn't be completed, performance would be deducted. Yulin took a cursory glance and quickly realized that this was a deliberate attempt by the boss to make things difficult. The document had more than 30 pages. This was not something that a normal human being could complete in an afternoon. But Yulin is not a human being. It took him an hour to complete it. He looked at his boss as if he had a bad cold and lost his sense of smell. He accidentally swallowed a piece of shit as chocolate in public, but he wanted to vomit but did not dare to vomit it out because he was afraid of social death. Yulin waved her hands, said goodbye, and walked out of the office. By the way, she pointed at the fine lattice fishnet stockings that another young female employee had newly bought and was lifting up a little of her skirt to show off excitedly to her best friend next door. She asked with a smile, "Doesn't it look good?" The boss held the document in his hand and nodded numbly, "Okay, it looks good. If it looks good, look at it more. If you say you can't, you won't be able to see it one day." Boom. The boss, who reacted angrily, threw the document submitted by employee Rod to the ground. "This shit, oh no, this breath is considered spitting out." So true. After being active for several hours, Yulin had only one realization. This world is too real. There is no clue that this is a virtual world. On the subway home after leaving get off work early, Yulin tried to find the irregularities that would make him aware of the abnormality. Just swipe your finger and nothing happens. He shouted log out and received strange looks from others. I pinched my thigh and it turned purple. Jumped into the river and almost drowned. Lying on the track, he was forcibly dragged off the track by the swarming riot police. Husband. When Rod's wife Jingxiang cried and came to the police station to identify herself, apologized to the police in a low voice, and took the wet and dirty Rod away from the police station, no one noticed that she seemed to be in a state of desolation. Rod's expression was as calm as a human emperor who was indifferent to the common people. "That's it, that's it, that's it." On the way home, Rhodes lowered his head and muttered, looking like he was mentally disturbed, Jingxiang hugged her husband tenderly, with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have quarreled with you. Yulin smiled and looked at his wife, who was both strange and familiar. I seem to have had a dream. Shizuka shook her head vigorously. As long as it's okay, it's okay. Yulin asked, do you know why we never have children? Shizuka was stunned. Didn't the doctor say that my health is not good and it's not easy to get pregnant? And you also, the number of times is too few. As she spoke, Shizuka lowered her head, her sad atmosphere somewhat diluted by the topic. Rhodes shook his head. No, that's because our children haven't been assigned yet. Shizuka was so frightened that she quickly touched her husband's forehead, clutched the phone tightly, and hesitated whether to call the emergency number. But the husband became normal the next second and said softly, if the world we live in is a dream that you can never wake up from, what will you do? The logic is clear and well-founded. Shizuka burst into tears and smiled, rubbing her eyes, thinking that it was just water in her brain. It was not a big problem. There was no need to call for emergency help, so she said casually, what else can I do? Just wake up. Okay. Yulin smiled and suddenly stretched out two fingers and poked Jingxiang's forehead. For a moment, Shizuka's eyes became hollow and silent, and she fell straight towards the soft carpet. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Have a wonderful night. Tisk. Sister Alice, who was off work, ran all the way. Sparks and lightning flew into her brother's house, and she hurriedly opened the door. She checked the information and suddenly found some ways to increase the feeling of intimacy in the long information. The moment he opened the door, his brother was sitting obediently on the charging pile. Huh? Why is my brother hummed all day long? Is the battery module aging? Or is it really that comfortable to charge the old model? Alice quickly analyzed her brother's body data and thought about how to replace her brother with higher-end parts, and then agreed with her brother's new identity. His. Helping your brother replace parts with your own hands is a very intimate thing. Sizzling. Alice's cheeks grew hot as she walked closer, and the heat alarm went off. You're here. Didn't you just take care of yourself? By the way, why is your face so red? It almost melted the armor plate. Yulin picked the right time and logged out of Phantom Light. The clone returned to the original body, the soul returned to the container, and Yulin opened her eyes. As soon as she saw Sister Alice, she noticed that the heating element on her face was not working properly. Yulin quickly asked Alice if something was wrong. Laugh. The cold cutting module starts operation. The sound of cold water flowing sounded. Alice calmed down. Only then did she say that she came here as soon as possible after get off work. What? Yulin was stunned for a while, wondering whether to laugh or cry in her heart. You mean to allow me to log in to Huang in an official capacity? You should have said so earlier. If you had told me earlier, I wouldn't have to go in openly. Say early. Alice keenly noticed the strangeness in Yulin's words. Ahem, I mean if you had told me earlier, brother, and I wouldn't be so free. Brother, there is an abnormality in the way you express yourself. It seems to be a malfunction. Alice tilted her head. She always felt that her younger brother was now the most popular speaker. Is there any? Yulin pretended to be stupid and knocked on his forehead. Maybe the model is too old. I will update the system another day. Okay, I'll go to work tomorrow. Alice left these words and left in a hurry, as if she had no intention of spending the night here. Before leaving, Alice seemed to remember something. He turned around and said, I'm going to apply for the next generation 10th generation biomass conversion power furnace for you. She seemed to think that it was not good for her brother to keep interfering like this. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1187. The surprise came so suddenly, leaving Yilin unprepared and unprepared. With Alice's help, he was actually able to log into Phantom Light fairly and no longer had to use his own methods. Yeah, fair and square. It is still officially recognized. Therefore, Yilin came to a conclusion. There's nothing wrong with being a younger brother. A night of silence. Yilin is very well behaved and quiet. He rarely got any sleep. Peace of mind. When I opened my eyes again, the alarm clock rang. The sky is once again obscured by haze and light pollution, and the eternal rings of outer space are covered by haze. It started to rain lightly today. Sister Alice said that the acid rain climate is the natural enemy of Omni devices, which will accelerate the aging of parts and increase maintenance costs. She specially ordered a combat umbrella and gave it to Yilin. The frame of the umbrella is made of a special alloy with excellent electrical conductivity and anti-corrosion properties. It can be turned into an umbrella knife in a snap and can easily chop low-level intelligent machines. She said that this is called gift-giving and is a common way to express intimacy in the world of illusion light. Yilin found it strange that Alice was meticulous in saying a good thing. Of course, Alice doesn't actually need it. A new model like hers comes with too many functions. I saw the light flowing on Alice's surface, creating an invisible energy suit on the body surface, easily blocking the raindrops from the armor plate. She thought it was impossible for Yilin's old model to have such a function. Yilin did not brush off her sister's kindness, holding an umbrella and going deep into the morning star mine. The two mechas, one behind the other, galloped for a distance at high speed. Alice secretly thinned part of the energy clothing, and then she pointed to her chest, where a shallow stain was corroded. It needs maintenance again. Yilin secretly wondered where Alice had secretly learned some strange tricks. There are literary masters in the Omnic community who are writing short essays. It is normal to write some plots that humans cannot understand and sympathize with. But your maintenance is too frequent. Yilin muttered in her heart, but there was no emotion on her face. After muttering a few times, her brother agreed, saying that he would give her sister a comprehensive maintenance, inside and out. Sister Alice means what she says. She seemed to have really applied for a special assembly order for the 10th generation biomass conversion power furnace for Yilin. After approval from above, the corresponding accessories will be sent here, and a dedicated person will modify it for Yilin. Of course Yilin doesn't need it. But if Alice told her about this in advance, he could think of how to deceive her in advance. Or install it for Wally. Yilin is now gradually reaching the peak of mechanical life, and she never forgets to promote her friends who were struggling in the garbage dump together. Let's not mention this matter for now. The order is still on the way. In the passage of the mine, the two brothers and sisters jetted all the way to the transport device. Getting on the bus is a period of waiting. As for the facilities in the mine, you can say they are advanced. Yilin feels that such a large mine is not even willing to put in space transmission technology, which makes Nemesis look too small. But if you call it backward, a national-level mine that has implemented fully automated mechanized management can hardly be related to backwardness. Speaking of Nemesis, Yilin had always wanted to find an opportunity to ask her sister what kind of status Nemesis was in her heart. In the information he had access to, there was never a word about Nemesis. After thinking about this for a while, Yilin vaguely understood. As a god, only by staying away from the mundane vision can we enhance our god status. As for Teacher Nirvana, as a mere god of weapons, if he interacts with ordinary Omni devices or human slaves, he will lose his composure. However, in Sister Alice's concept, there are only vague concepts such as Supreme Council, Factory, and Superior, and there is no Nemesis. This made Yilin feel a little strange. Maybe the Supreme Council that Sister Alice has always been taboo about is the spokesperson of Nemesis. In other words, in Sister Alice's concept, there is no Nemesis, only the Supreme Council. While thinking about it, the siblings arrived at their destination. The destination is a towering building that takes into account both the building function itself and the role of a signaling tower. Yulin didn't rush to inquire about the phantom light on the way. After all, he had already sneaked in, and he would naturally know it when he got to the destination. In the official setting, this tower is called the Morning Tower and is the central area of the mine. The Morning Light Tower has 312 floors and is 2,824 meters high. Lights of different colors flicker on the surface of the tower, like tracks of light woven around the surface of the tower. Hidden under the steel plates, there are many hidden seams. Compared with the tower itself, it is also made into a weapon. Yulin always felt that omnic weapons seemed a bit redundant in the Nemesis universe. It wasn't until he actually entered the world of illusion in an official capacity that he understood why. Alice-101 took Yulin to the 200th floor. Every 10th floor, ID verification is required. At the bottom, there are some managers who are responsible for maintaining the operation of the Dawn Tower together with the Omnics. They all call Alice MS Alice-101. Every manager wears heavy protective clothing and works silently on each floor of the Morning Light Tower. In Area 11, the air pollution is serious. It is difficult for ordinary humans to survive in this harsh environment without wearing any protective equipment. The 200th floor is a room with clean and white walls. The light-emitting components on the walls make it day and night. In the room, hundreds of silver seats were arranged neatly, just like the seats in a movie theater, with many humanoid omnics sitting on them, silently. Cybercafe. This strange sense of déjà vu suddenly came to Yulin's mind. So similar. Come on, this is the Phantom Light Terminal. Alice-101 waved to Yulin and found a private room, which looked like a couple seat and was separated by several seats from other seats. Alice took the initiative to sit in one of the seats and demonstrated the operation process for Yulin. After Alice-101 sat firmly, the silver seat suddenly seemed to flow like a liquid, matching Alice's body shape, soaking most of Alice's body in it. From the outside, Alice and the seat seemed to be fused into one body, leaving only the two weapon bays on the chest rising out of the surface. This is obviously because the front weapons bay of the Alice is designed to be too large and cannot be completely covered by the seats. Failure, failure within failure. Yulin secretly complained about Nemesis's rubbish design. Tiny optical cables were separated from the seat that was suspected to be liquid memory metal, and lightly covered Alice's surface. What interface does this use? Yulin scratched his head. He had to ask in advance, otherwise it would be embarrassing if there was no corresponding docking port preset on the L-shaped one. Wouldn't it reveal his identity as an intruder? He. Alice simulated laughter. Silly brother, this is electromagnetic wave transmission. As long as the terminal is authorized to enter the exact same frequency as your personality module, the link can be completed. Wireless. Understood. It turns out Nemesis knows how to use Wi-Fi, he is indeed a god. It's just that the Wi-Fi is really short. Sister, go ahead. The lights on Alice's eyes went out, and her voice became weaker and weaker. Brother, come in quickly, access the Phantom Light permission, and the grant is complete. You said it quite easily. After Yulin witnessed Alice entering the world of illusion light, her transparent perception was released, and she had a panoramic view of the architectural layout of the Morning Light Tower. Safety. Yulin put her hand on the surface of the silver seat and began to analyze its characteristics. After a while. So that's it, Yulin let go of her hand and thought to herself, the principle is not complicated. The personification module of each Omni machine has a fixed frequency. Combined with their batch numbers, a series of unique keys can be generated. This is like the ID card of each Omni machine. It is unique. The Omni machine has no authority to tamper with it on its own. You only need to enter this identity ID in advance in the corresponding terminal to complete the authorization, which is equivalent to password echoing. But now Yilin's only problem is that his core data is not carried in the Omnium, but in the blood avatar. But this doesn't seem to be a problem either. Yilin has the experience of sneaking into the world of illusion secretly, because the box they are in is Alisama's couple's box, so it is very safe. Yilin separated part of her authority and easily infected this terminal, turning it into her own shape. Lying on the seat, the terminal actively changes its shape and wraps Yilin inside. Unlike the Alice model, Yilin's model is completely flat, with only the head exposed to the silver liquid. Deep dive. L-1010 applies to enter the Phantom Light terminal. Authorization passed. Verification passed. Anthropomorphic character has not been created yet. Enter the character creation interface. The illusory stream of light flew straight back at high speed within Yilin's field of vision. The granular broken light spread out a strip of light in Yilin's field of vision, gorgeous and luxurious. Yilin had the illusion of traveling through a time tunnel. At the end of the light is a pure white room. In the room, there is a human-shaped white torso floating in the void in the shape of a large font. Eyes, ears, mouth, nose, gender, name, all are blank. Yilin feels that her current situation is unexplainable. First he pretended to be an Omnic, and now he is pretending to be a human from an Omnic. After going round and round, I still return to the starting point. Skillfully pinching her face, Yilin naturally shaped the face of the anthropomorphic character into the look she was most comfortable with. No, this is a bit dangerous. Yilin squeezed it, thinking something was wrong. Could it be that Nemesis didn't even have facial recognition function? Think about it. Yilin's thoughts moved, and she sighed softly, and then a faint feeling of nostalgia surged in her heart. The facial features of the illusory doll were shaped bit by bit under Yilin's careless carving. Please enter anthropomorphic name. Lin Yi. Creation completed. Start loading the personification module. Yilin's eyes blurred, and she felt a sense of weightlessness. When he opened his eyes again, his consciousness was uploaded to the avatar of Lin Yi. Lin Yi was wearing a crisp black suit, his hair was combed back and shiny. On Lin Yi's face, he was wearing a pair of expensive-looking sunglasses, and lines of messy code danced in the field of vision of the sunglasses from time to time. Becoming human again. Become Lin Yi. Yilin would not be unfamiliar with this feeling. He looked down. The dark and shiny leather shoes under his feet have two pedals on the left and right. In the distance, there is a straight narrow passage. At the end of the passage, there is light. Boo-hoo-hoo. Streamers of different colors on both sides jumped forward. He seemed to have landed on the accelerating magnetic track launched by the mecha. Boom. Hunter, number, L-1010, Lin Yi, ready to launch. Now countdown to launch. 10. 9. Emission. Yilin, who looked confused, was sprayed out of the orbit. The exit of the launch orbit is thousands of meters in the air. When Yilin was sprayed out, the dark night and the bright moon were reflected behind the sunglasses. In mid-air, Yilin reached the apex of the parabola and glided forward. How do I land? Yilin was high in the air, stroking her chin, lost in thought. Younger brother. A nimble and slender figure moved at high speed among the tall buildings in the distance. Boom. The figure was on the top floor of one of the buildings, pressing down his legs like springs, and a second later, he lifted straight into the air. Ignoring any rules of gravity and inertia, he shouted for his younger brother, accurately calculated the parabola landing point of Lin Yi's cannonball, and before Yilin was about to land, he reached out and hugged Yilin tightly, and embraced her gently. The person hugging Yilin was a woman. Her short silver hair reaches her shoulders, and she wears a pair of small sunglasses on her fair nose. On her round left earlobe, there is a cute teardrop-shaped earring. The earrings are engraved with the word Alice in the center. The lady is wearing a tight casual skirt, with an elegant light gray ribbon tied around the collar of a white blouse. Her two long legs are tightly wrapped in elegant but not excessive black silk, and she wears a pair of black pants on her feet. Round toe heels. The height of the heels is just right, making the arches of your feet curve smoothly. Sister. Yilin allowed herself to be held by the newcomer, ignoring the inertia and gently falling into the mediocre crowd. The strange thing is that in the densely populated three-way intersection between high-rise buildings, the two people who fell from the sky seemed to be transparent and did not attract anyone's attention. Everyone was busy with their own things, or immersed in their own things. Messages on your phone. Alice-101 reluctantly let go of her brother. She expressionlessly brushed one side of her silver hair that was blown by the wind to her ear, and explained in a voice without any emotion, in Phantom Light, the action mode is different from the outside. The first time you connect to Phantom Light, it may take a while for the buffering process. Really, Yilin closed her eyes and took in it carefully. Indeed, Alice was right. There were subtle differences in the feelings that the two bodies gave him when he connected to the Phantom Light in an official capacity and smuggled into the Phantom Light. But the specific differences would be revealed in a moment. Ren couldn't describe it in words, but if he had to say it, it seemed that he could do whatever he wanted to anything and anyone now. That's probably what it feels like. Lin Yi Alice read Yilin's character information. In her concept, she would not evaluate the quality of a name. In other words, in Alice's eyes, a name is just a code name. Has not been given any special meaning. My character is Near. Ellie said. Near? Near. That sounds good. Yilin praised it without thinking at first, and then asked curiously, Sister, didn't you say that you, ahem, we don't need a name, Yilin asked. Alice felt that Yilin's question was a bit strange, and she seemed to be asking it knowingly. The name of the anthropomorphic character is Near and has no connection with Alice-101. For a moment, Yilin had the illusion that her sister was deliberately playing tricks on her. But when she turned around to look at it, Alice looked serious when she said this, without even the slightest hint of joking. It was obvious that in her logic, Near was a virtual character, and Alice-101 was the real one. For her, the distinction between the two is clear. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 1188. The mediocre crowd took the initiative to leave. They seemed to be unable to see the two of them. But they will subconsciously avoid them. Yilin thought for a moment and realized that this was nothing more than adding a little subconscious hint to the access ports of all biological batteries. When a normal person encounters a pillar, he will not bump into it stupidly, but will actively avoid it. And he and Alice, no, Neil, in the eyes of the Phantom Light residents at this moment, are equivalent to two ordinary roadside pillars. Neil took Yilin's hand, left the busy three-way intersection, and walked in one direction. As he walked, Yilin discovered that small green dots appeared in his sunglasses' field of view, flickering on and off, making beep sounds from time to time, reporting the location of the green dots in real time. According to Omnic logic, green dots represent friendly units. He remembered his identity when he logged in, and asked Neil, our job is, Hunter. What to hunt? The Awakened One. After Yilin obtained the corresponding authorization, Neil did not hide the content of her work this time and said 3 words concisely. Immediately afterwards, a small data packet was transmitted to Yilin's center. That's a noun explanation. Awakened One, the biological battery that accidentally opened its eyes in the life-sustaining cabin under the influence of a certain existence, is called an awakened person. Something exists. Open one's eyes. Biobattery. There is a noun explanation of trembling in this word, which makes people think a lot. Why did they open their eyes? Yulin asked. Neil replied, 50 years ago, a strange scarlet storm swept across the 24 districts. On the day the scarlet storm occurred, there were 1,000 mines in the 24 districts. A large-scale crash event. Starting from that day, the awakened ones appeared. Yulin was stunned when he heard this. 50 years ago again? Crimson storm? Etc. Yulin suddenly realized, it turns out it's still you. Green. 50 years ago, when Yulin was slapped into the Nemesis universe by Green, Green secretly acted cruelly, taking the opportunity to disrupt the operating rules of the Nemesis universe, and deliberately created this for Yulin. Opportunity. Nemesis has been entrenched here for many epochs, and his control over this place is so deep-rooted that it is difficult to remove it. But after Green's slap, times changed, and Nemesis was knocked out of the loophole with one slap. Although he didn't know how Nemesis got the bad news, at this moment, Yulin had no other idea except calling him Green is awesome. Green is awesome. Green's slap was a super assist. While secretly rejoicing, Yulin made a distressed look. It hurts. It hurts too much. Neil. She felt that her brother's expressions were too rich, but she didn't think much about it. She continued to train Yulin as a new hunter and did the basic work of induction training responsibly. She said calmly, "We're a new hunter. The task of the Awakened One is to find the Awakened One in the Phantom Light and carry out the capture mission. Can't it be captured in reality?" As the two walked, Yulin asked. Neil nodded, very happy with Yulin's diligence and studiousness, and just asking if you don't understand, and replied, "Brother, of course you can." At first, the awakened people tried to escape from the mine, but their human bodies were too fragile. It only took an average of 3.812 seconds to be captured as soon as it climbed out of the battery compartment. Yulin recalled the emaciated bodies of the biobatteries in the life-sustaining cabin. It was a miracle that the malnourished flesh could even crawl out, let alone run out of the mine on two legs. Without anyone's help, this is simply an impossible task. So, Yulin smiled, they have learned to be smart. Even if they open their eyes, they will immediately close them, pretending that they have never awakened, pretending that nothing has happened, secretly living in the phantom light world. And our task is to find them from the crowd and capture them. As expected of my younger brother, Neil gave a thumbs up and exclaimed, but soon she frowned again, "Has your system been upgraded?" "Yes, the intelligence has been upgraded in the terminal." Yulin casually gave a reason. Neil's trust in Yulin was overwhelming. Even if Yulin said that the system will automatically upgrade after the chip is flooded, she would not be too suspicious. She nodded and began to educate her brother about the activities in the illusion light world. Tips for hunting missions. To put it simply, in the virtual world, there is no physical data loaded in the true sense. All air, gravity, temperature, weather, and humidity are virtual data. Because hunters have higher access rights to the terminal, they can ignore the above physical principles when moving in the virtual world. But to what extent it can be achieved, everything depends on computing power. In other words, the more advanced the Omni machine is, the stronger it is in the virtual world. For example, the ancient Wally model is fortunate enough to be connected to the Phantom Light. With its data processing capabilities, it can only change its shape and fire a gun. After listening to Neil's explanation, Yulin thought about it secretly. That's his strength. Even though he is not a serious Omnic, he has unlimited power, and he has secretly incorporated some of the rules of Omnics. In this way, if he lets go and does it, how far can he achieve it? Maybe, can you cast magic in the virtual world? If he could really reach that level, he would really be at home in Phantom Light. But with Neil at her side, Yulin didn't try rashly. Along the way, Neil would send small documents with pictures and texts from time to time, giving Yilin a deeper understanding of phantom light. Although it is a bit unethical to use her sister in this way, Neil is like a qualified guide. After the two of them walked around the city for a few hours, Yilin basically understood some of the rules and operating logic of phantom light ripe. Only in these few hours, the imagined violent conflict and capture mission did not appear. Instead of saying they were working, Neil and Lin Yi, the two virtual characters, looked more like a young couple, no, little brothers, shopping side by side. The night passed. The brilliant sunlight rises from the east and dawn arrives. The two walked out all night. Yilin thought that her first day at work would be an uneventful one, but just before she got off work, something unexpected happened. "Brother. Let's go." Neil waved his hand domineeringly, grabbed Yilin's wrist, pressed down with his feet, and the two of them jumped into the air. The whistling air blew around them like knives, and the two of them moved in the air like jets. The air actively separates into a path, reducing air resistance. In an instant, the two of them crossed the indifferent city and landed on the steel cable of a bridge. A few hundred meters away, a concentrated high-beam headlight was running toward the bridge at high speed. It was a streamlined red motorcycle. On the motorcycle, a man wearing a black trench coat and sunglasses, who was not sure whether he was showing off or showing off, was lying on the motorcycle, running desperately in the opposite direction. A motorcycle nimbly drives in the opposite direction in light traffic. In reality, this behavior is no different from committing suicide. But in the virtual world, this kind of speed and passion is undoubtedly very interesting to watch. Because the motorcycles were traveling in the opposite direction at high speed, the forward-moving vehicles, in panic and avoidance, had a series of collisions, broke through the guardrails, and fell off the bridge. A series of car accidents triggered a series of explosions. In the flames of the explosion, the bridge collapsed. Amidst the screams and shouts of countless phantom residents, the man on the motorcycle suddenly lifted the front of the motorcycle and drove up the steel cable. Using the power of the motorcycle, he jumped into the air and crossed the broken and collapsed bridge. In Yilin's sunglasses, green dots were approaching here. Each green dot represents his hunter colleagues, which means that his colleagues are chasing the man on the motorcycle and promptly report the movements of the awakened one to Neil. One by one the hunters fell into the water. Waste. Neil couldn't stand it anymore. Behind his sunglasses, something called murderous aura came out. Omnics have no emotions, Neil is just telling a clearly visible fact in a calm tone. As a high-level Omnic, he was actually fooled by an awakened inferior creature. "Brother, don't fall." Neil turned around and told his brother that the Neil was ready to attack. "Wait, let me come." Yilin reached out and grabbed Neil's short skirt, almost pulling it off. During the extreme pull, Yilin refused to let her fly down. "You must let your brother come." Neil shook his head. "You can't do that. Are you going to reject the passionate request that your younger brother made to your sister when he just joined the ranks of the hunters and went on his first mission? This is my younger brother's lifetime request." Yilin issued an application for departure in an emotional voice. Zitsize. Friendliness. Sympathy. Younger brother. Task. Each word created a running conflict in Neil's logic. The excellent Alice type, due to her overly powerful computing power, even in an instant, turned out a bunch of painful literary compositions that she had downloaded into the database not long ago. Something like "I am your eyes and you are my screws." This is a priority level conflict. Should I carry out my mission first, or cultivate kindness, or listen to my younger brother, or follow that damn sympathy? Neil panicked. His vision went dark. Tang An is an awakener. He awakened accidentally 3 years ago. At the moment when Tang An truly opened his eyes, he witnessed the reality of the world with his own eyes. The elder told him how to escape from the control of Omnics, and he worked hard to escape. When he crawled out of the stinking waste disposal station and from a pile of corpses about to enter the incinerator, he breathed in the dirty air and felt like he was reborn. Free. At that moment, he felt free. At least, that's what he thought at the time. But during the 3 years he lived in Ark No 11, he regretted his original decision. Why the hell am I taking red pills when I have nothing to do? Isn't it bad to eat blue? A lifetime of peace and stability, ignorance, but happiness. But there is no use regretting now. Tang An secretly accessed the world of illusion through the illegal port. Unexpectedly, he was discovered by the hunter just after enjoying it for half a day. Damn predator! Tang An is the best among the awakened ones. Since he sneaked into Phantom Light, it means that he has rich experience in dealing with predators. No matter how powerful the hunter is, it is still an omnic creature and cannot match the wisdom of humans. Once the awakened person masters the ability to awaken in the virtual world, he will have the confidence to deal with the predator. No matter how extreme it is to dodge bullets, those are all basic operations. The powerful awakened one can fly into the sky and escape from the earth. He is omnipotent and can even kill the hunter. After causing a series of car accidents and blowing up the bridge, temporarily blocking the hunter's pursuit, Tang An seized the time to find an escape passage in the virtual world. At this time, a cold female voice came to Tang An's ears. Tang An, the elders have discovered that you secretly entered the Phantom Light. Come back and wait for the confinement. Stop humming making fun of me. Find an exit for me quickly. Once I'm caught, Ark's location will be exposed. You don't want to die together, right? The female voice in her ear replied indifferently. The elder said that the worst plan is to completely destroy the illegal port you log into. The only person left in the Phantom Light is you. To put it simply, unplug the network cable. Tang An's expression suddenly changed. Illegal ports are also very precious resources in Ark number 11. Each illegal port was remodeled by seniors who risked their lives by secretly stealing abandoned life support capsules from waste disposal stations. Destroying one means losing one. This is a precious material cultural heritage. Although he hated the hard life in Ark No 11, human beings are such complex and contradictory creatures. The illusion of light is illusory, but it is beautiful and enviable. The reality is cruel, difficult to survive, and the environment is harsh, but it is real. Tang An could not let go of both. But if the elder could really be so cruel and destroy the illegal port, he would really be left in the world of illusion forever. Tang An's expression changed again and again. Black and purple. At this time, on the other side of the call, the female voice was silent for a while, and then quickly said, "Leave the bridge and avoid the hunters. There is a suspended building at number 11 St. Peter Avenue. In 60 seconds, I will you create an exit." 60 seconds. Tang An's eyes narrowed. He knew that he had 60 seconds to rush to the abandoned building at number 11 St. Peter Avenue. Time was very tight, but he was forced to do so. The exit could not be maintained for too long. Once if exit is maintained for more than 10 seconds, if caught by a hunter, it is likely to be counter-intruded, etc. Tang An climbed nimbly on the outer wall of the building and climbed to the top of the building, intending to move forward in a straight line from the top of the building. It is common sense that a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. But just when Tang An was shaking his windbreaker and preparing to show off, the tone of the communication suddenly changed, becoming urgent and nervous. Done. At your 7 o'clock direction. There is, high energy reaction. When Tang An heard this, he turned around sharply. At this moment, he saw a scene that he would never forget. I saw an ordinary hunter wearing a black slim-fitting suit and sunglasses, hanging high in the sky like an eagle. He had a charming smile on his face, raising his fist to him as if he was joking or saying hello. Fist, fist. Don't all hunters use guns? Tang An's mind stopped for a moment. The surface of the hunter's body was covered with a layer of brilliant white light. The air and light were twisted on the hunter's fist, and finally condensed into a tiny point. Behind the hunter, the twisted light is torn apart, and the colorful colors formed when it is torn are layered. Behind the hunter, it is like a pair of ferocious wings. After the light fades, only a terrifying darkness remains. And the point on his fist was like a black hole, sucking everything away. One punch.